the Sorcerer of the Celestial Dragon line. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, Crossing. Imperial Capital, a military hospital, chronic intensive care unit. Mr. Lin Mu, are you sure you want to sign this agreement? A doctor in his 30s in a white coat stroked his frameless glasses and asked again. Sitting on the bed was a pale old man. Looking at his grey hair and wrinkles, the first impression was that he was already 60 years old, but he knew that he was only 42 years old this year. Looking at the voluntary agreement in his hand, Lin Mu was silent for a while. The doctor waited patiently and quietly, without any sign of impatience. After a long time, Lin Mu raised his head. Dr. Chuzuan, I have considered it and accept it. After saying this, Lin Mu seemed to put down all his insistence, picked up the signature pen, and signed his name in the place where he signed. As a college student in the 1990s, Lin Mu caught up with that magnificent and muddy era and earned a considerable family business through hard work. He got married in his 30s, but the good life did not continue. Once he fainted in the office and was sent to the hospital for treatment. Everything changed. He had a strange disease and he could not find any cause, but his body was constantly weakening. In order to survive, he began to receive treatment in major hospitals across the country, but the effect was minimal. He even went to other hospitals in the world, but no cause was found at all. His accumulated wealth was almost exhausted, and his condition did not improve at all. Finally, he gave up. In order to leave some inheritance for his wife, children, and elderly parents, Lin Mu accepted a human experiment. 3 days later, Lin Mu was taken to a base by a riot control vehicle with military license plates. After a series of strict inspections, he appeared in an underground research institute. The person in front of him was the doctor named Chuzuan. At this time, he was wearing a military uniform and holding an agreement in his hand. Mr. Lin Mu, you have signed a confidentiality agreement. Whether you succeed or fail this time, you may not be able to leave here again. Now I ask you again, do you agree? Dr. Chu, I understand, it's a state secret. Besides, I don't have much time to live. I will abide by the agreement. Lin Mu said calmly. That's good. Get ready first. After you change your clothes, we'll start the biochip implantation test. Lin Mu was lying on the operating table. There were all kinds of instruments around the room. Lin Mu could easily tell that the instruments here were at least 20 years ahead of those in the outside world. The biochip implanted in him was also operated by a robotic arm. As the anesthetic was injected, Lin Mu's consciousness became more and more blurred. Finally, he lost consciousness completely. The test subject's vital signs are normal. Begin implanting the biochip. The neuron connection is ready. The last check of the biochip. The brain activity of the test subject has dropped to the target value. Prepare for surgery. Begin implanting the chip. The test subject's vital signs are normal. Neurons are starting to connect. The brain is starting to take over the chip's sovereignty. The chip is connected. Start restarting. Accepting the order. Restarting. Beep. Warning. The test subject's body temperature is starting to rise. Beep. Warning. The information data is too large. Beep. Warning. The energy line is overloaded. A series of alarms sounded frantically, and the people standing in the observation room watching the big screen reacted instantly. Quick, stop the experiment. Turn off the chip. Reduce the energy output. Quick, turn on the backup power supply. Start the life support equipment. Go open the door. Boom. After a loud noise, the operating room became a mess, and the operating table in the middle disappeared directly. Various equipment was scattered all over the floor. In the desolate wilderness, the scorching sun emitted infinite light and heat under the sky, illuminating the vast earth. In the lush bushes, a subtle sound gradually came out. The long carriage team was moving forward, and the wheels of the carriage rolled on the road, up and down, and the axle made a squeaking sound, which also caused the carriage to vibrate. My head hurts so much. Where is it? This was Lin Mu's first impression after the situation. It felt like his head was torn apart and it hurt so much. The scene in front of him was on a carriage. His body kept rising and falling with the body of the carriage. His brain was even more drowsy. He saw double vision when he saw things, and there was a tearing pain all over his body. He grinned, took a breath of cold air, and rested on the cushion for a long time before he recovered. He felt much better and looked around. In front of him was an open carriage, and there were several blonde and blue-eyed foreign boys around, lying or sitting, but they didn't look at him. He felt very uncomfortable lying on the wooden board, and struggled to move. At this moment, there was another stabbing pain in his mind. Many unfamiliar pictures came over. This was the life memory of a boy named Allen. The owner of this body was the second son of an ordinary viscount. Because he was found to have wizard talent, he was able to pass when the wizard organization came here to recruit people and joined the carriage heading to the wizard organization. Hey, Allen, you finally woke up. It's time to eat. If you don't hurry up, you'll be hungry today. Looking at the person who called him, this is a big boy with an axe-like face, very Greek godlike style, and a brilliant blonde hair. Although it was a little immature, his muscles were bulging and looked very impactful. According to memory, he knew that this person was called Tony. Tony, thank you for reminding me, but can you help me? Allen tried but failed to stand up. In this team, except for those black-robed knights, the others are children with wizard qualifications. It is said that he is the youngest son of an earl, and he is quite favored. After thinking about it, I found that most of these noble heirs are second sons or youngest sons, and there are very few eldest sons. This should be a choice made to avoid the heirs competing for the title. After all, the application fee for the wizard organization is not low. Lin Mu is full of interest in mysterious powers. In his previous life, he lived in an era of scientific prosperity and has been exploring these mysterious powers, but the results are almost zero. When his thoughts were flying, a pair of big hands helped Lin Mu up. What are you thinking about? You really don't plan to eat? Eat more if you are injured, and you will recover quickly. Tony said casually. Nothing, just how long have I been unconscious? Lin Mu asked, pressing his temple. Almost a day. Tony said. You are a military noble, how could you fall off your horse? You don't spend all your time on women. Tony looked at Lin Mu and shook his head. Thank you, I'm sorry to bother you. Lin Mu rubbed his head, which was getting worse. It's really strange today. Allen actually thanked me. Tony said jokingly. Allen broke out in a cold sweat when he heard this. The owner of this body used to be a playboy. Fortunately, Tony just said it casually and didn't pay attention to Allen's expression. Allen was relieved after a few perfunctory words and sent Tony away. Fortunately, he didn't care just now, but I must pay attention in the future, otherwise it will be a lot of fun if I'm found to be a fake. Recalling in his mind, this noble named Allen used to do evil in the territory. Although he didn't do any serious evil, the evaluation of a playboy was definitely a compliment to him. He was unlearned, lustful, and arrogant. This time he fell off the horse and hit his head, and died immediately, which happened to give Lin Mu, who had just crossed over, an opportunity to take advantage. Forget it. It's important to save your life first. This is not a civilized society. It advocates the law of the jungle. I didn't expect that when I was desperate, I would get a new life again. As for occupying your body, I'm sorry, I can only blame your bad luck. As for now, I'm Allen Farkus. After getting dressed, Allen stroked the carriage and opened the door. He stretched his body that had been lying for a day and finally felt much more comfortable. In his previous life, he was ill and tossed in bed for nearly 10 years. Finally, he couldn't stand it and accepted a human experiment. The last memory was a thunderstorm, lightning, and then darkness. It seemed that he failed, but it felt good to be alive after being reborn. Looking around, more than a dozen huge carriages formed a simple camp, with several bonfires burning in the middle. Many boys and girls were eating on the ground stalls, and some of them were playing together. Regarding Allen's arrival, some looked at him coldly, some laughed, and more were indifferent. Allen came to a long table by himself. There were rich food on it. This was where the food was distributed. After he walked in, there were still a few people queuing in front of him. Seeing Allen coming, no one greeted him. Allen shamelessly pretended that nothing had happened. Only here was their food. If he left, he would be hungry. He couldn't starve if he was injured. With the medical level of this era, it is likely that it is still at the stage of bloodletting therapy. Once he got sick, this little body might die. Soon, it was Allen's turn. He received a portion of food from the black-robed knight with a cold breath, and said thank you. He walked away slowly. In the short contact just now, Allen noticed the unusually strong body under the black robe. When he got closer, he seemed to smell a strong smell of blood. Allen was also curious about the knights in this world. These knights were unusually strong after training. The previous world could not be compared with it. Such a backward civilization actually has unique features in physical training. It's amazing. Chapter 2 Chips and Systems. Allen took the food and slowly left. There was a whisper behind him, but he didn't have the energy to care about it now. Looking at the indifferent eyes around him, he smiled bitterly. Let's heal the wound first. He found a more remote place and sat down without caring whether the ground was dirty or not, and began to eat. The food was very rich: truffle bread, some jam, fruit, and a piece of barbecue that I couldn't tell what kind of meat it was. This truffle bread is not bad. Although it is not as good as in my previous life, it is already the treatment of a king in this world with low productivity. Allen spread some jam on the bread while eating. Although the taste is not as good as in my previous life, this is a pure natural, pollution-free, pesticide-free, and non-GMO green food. Only nobles can enjoy it occasionally here. Ordinary people can only eat hard black bread that can be used as a weapon. That thing can only be bitten when it is just out of the oven, but it is harder than stone when it is cold, and it is mixed with sawdust, chaff, and even stones. Fortunately, he was reborn as a noble. Otherwise, if he were a commoner, I'm afraid it would be difficult to pass the food level alone. After finishing the bread, he picked up the barbecue and started eating. I don't know what kind of animal this barbecue is from, but it tastes fragrant and has no fishy smell like other meats. After wolfing it down, he drank the juice. He breathed a sigh of relief with satisfaction. At this time, he felt that his body was actually a little warm. Ding, energy is detected, and the Zushin system begins to reload. Loading 20%, 30%, 50%, 80%, 100%. Loading completed. Do you want to start? In Allen's mind, a mechanical and stiff voice suddenly sounded. This is. Allen's pupils shrank suddenly, and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. Did the human experiment I participated in succeed? But that's not right. Even if it succeeded, my soul traveled through time, and I didn't bring my body with me. Why do I hear the prompt sound? But what the hell is the Zushin system? Without thinking too much, he said directly, start. Zushin system starts. Beep beep beep. The system is seriously damaged, and the startup failed. The soul binding chip was found, and the fusion began. After a long time, the prompt sound came again in his mind. The biochip has been integrated. Welcome to use it. What happened to the chip? Why am I here? Ding, the task is generated. Start answering. Insufficient information. Unable to answer. What is the All Heavens system? Ding, the All Heavens system has been integrated. It is the host soul binding system. It has always been in the host's body and cannot be activated due to lack of energy. You mean it was bound in my previous life or earlier, but there is just no energy to activate it? Allen's heart was in turmoil, and he couldn't calm down. Yes. Are the problems with my body in my previous life also caused by this system? Yes. The host's physical problems in the previous life were caused by the All Heavens system. Because the All Heavens system was severely damaged, it extracted the host's energy to recover. Allen looked heartbroken. No wonder he suddenly got a strange disease in his previous life and his body kept getting weaker, but he couldn't find any reason. It turned out to be the system. Didn't other people reach the peak of their lives after getting the system? What's going on with me? I've been drained by the system. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. What about now? Will it still extract energy? Now the All Heaven Crossing system has given up most of its functions. The materials carried and exchanged have been lost due to abnormal reasons. Only the crossing and one item are retained and merged with the chip. The normal state will no longer extract energy. That means it will still extract energy. Allen's face twitched. Energy is only extracted when crossing. Because it is no longer extracting energy, the items carried cannot be maintained. Please accept it, host. Then a crystal bottle appeared in Allen's hand. After observing it left and right, he put the crystal bottle away and began to check the newly appeared chip. It took a while to figure out that this all-heaven crossing system is a legendary golden finger, a product created by a great man, but it was damaged in the turbulence of time and space, and then came to Blue Star and bound to Lin Mu. It's just that it takes a lot of energy to improve the system. As a result, it should have been a golden finger, but it turned out to be a finger that urges death. Lin Mu gave up treatment and signed up for a human experiment. He was implanted with the latest biochip. The two things conflicted. Lin Mu died, and the system spontaneously crossed, but it was originally insufficient in energy, and the damage was more serious after crossing again. Only the core ability of time travel was left, and the world coordinates and materials carried disappeared. Slowly exhaling, Allen said in his mind, "System, scan my body and display the body data." Ding. Scan completed. Lin Mu, Allen Farkus, strength 0.5, agility 0.5, constitution 0.4, status. A large number of soft tissue contusions on the chest, back and arms, intracranial hemorrhage at the back of the head. A three-dimensional figure appeared in front of Allen. This was his own body projection, and various data were displayed on the side. After studying for a long time, Allen finally understood the function of this chip a little bit. The storage function can record everything the host touches or observes. According to the chip calculation, the things that can be stored here are beyond imagination. Even if a university library is put in, it will not occupy 1/10,000th of the space. The analysis function can collect samples according to the host's command and perform simulation deduction. And the integration of the heavens crossing system has the ability to cross, but crossing requires a lot of energy and cannot be activated now. I have read the functions. Allen's mouth was filled with a brilliant smile. He deeply understood that with this golden finger, his future in this extraordinary world was destined to be extraordinary. But this Allen's physical fitness is really scum. It's a compliment to say that he is a scumbag. After looking at the physical data, Allen was speechless again. The chip collects the physical data of several people around. Ding. Mission established. Start collecting data. Almost instantly, the physical data of several people around Allen appeared in front of him. Name unknown. Gender, male, strength 1.0, agility 1.1, constitution 1.0, inches. Name unknown. Gender, male, strength 1.2, agility 0.8, constitution 1.1, inches. Seeing that the physical fitness of these people around him was stronger than him, Allen felt helpless. This guy was really a waste. Allen did not scan those black-robed knights. Who knows if there are any special skills in this world that can sense chip scanning. Now he is the weakest, so he is still low-key. He slowly stood up, threw away the food residue in his hand, and slowly returned to the carriage. These nobles will definitely not squeeze in the carriage to rest. They will definitely set up tents and have a good sleep. Allen found his sleeping bag on the back of the carriage, where the luggage was piled, and prepared to spend the night in the carriage. He laid a few cushions underneath, and got into the warm sleeping bag. He had to continue his journey tomorrow, and the journey to the wizard organization was not short, and it would take a long time. He closed his eyes, drowsy, and soon fell asleep. Chapter 3, Night's Breathing. The next morning, Allen woke up early. It was still dark, but some people had already gotten up. Most of their injuries had healed. They put on their clothes and got off the carriage. Several teenagers were practicing swordsmanship not far away. Allen's pupils shrank. This was a unique training method for knights in this world. It needed to be combined with breathing techniques to exercise the body. Standing next to the carriage, he recalled the memories in his mind, muttered to himself, and a trace of unknown excitement appeared in his eyes. Chip, collect the knight's training method, and extract all the memories of knights in your mind. With a gleam in his eyes, Allen ordered the chip in his mind. At this moment, Allen's memories began to go back continuously, and the information about knights kept appearing in his mind, very clear. Knights are the title of the high-end combat power in this world, and their status is extremely respected. These knights have extremely strong strength, and their physical fitness is several times that of ordinary people. They are more proficient in the use of various weapons and killing skills. A formal knight can challenge dozens of warriors alone, and some knights even master the secret skills of instant burst. Knights have a high status in this world. Even if they are poor, as long as they are willing to surrender, they can obtain a knight's title and at least one manor as a territory in any country. All knights constitute the aristocracy and are the basis of the rule of secular kingdoms. To become a knight, the most important thing is to have the knight's breathing method, which is a key to becoming a knight. Allen has already learned the knight's breathing method and the matching swordsmanship of the Farkus family, but it requires persistent training to be effective. The original owner of this body is a coward. How can he have the perseverance to learn this thing? So after practicing a few times, he felt too tired and stopped learning. Otherwise, his physical fitness would not be what it is now. At this time, seeing other people practicing swordsmanship, Allen calmly began to collect data. As the mechanical sound sounded in places that others could not see, a stream of information constantly emerged in Allen's eyes. Under the scanning and analysis of the chip, the breathing frequency, body movement rhythm, blood flow in the body, and skin pores on the surface of the body of those people were recorded as one of the data supports for analyzing each other's breathing method. Everyone's physical fitness is different, and by collecting these data and creating files, and comparing the calculation results, it is possible to deduce part of the knight's breathing method that they practice. This is crucial for Allen, who wants to reconnect with the knight's breathing method. After a while, these people finished practicing, and dispersed in 2s and 3s, and most people got up, washed up, had breakfast, put away the tent, and set off again. Allen hid in the corner of the carriage, looking like he was resting his mind with his eyes closed, but he was actually deducing the knight's breathing method. Chip. Take the Farkus breathing method as a basic breathing method, and combine it with other breathing methods collected to optimize the deduction. Ding. Mission established. Start to deduce and optimize the Farkus breathing method. It is estimated to take 153 minutes. Chip. According to my various physical data, establish a model for practicing the breathing method. Ding. Mission established. The character model is established, and the deduction begins. With the mechanical sound, or three-dimensional figure appeared in front of Allen, and the three-dimensional figure began to practice according to the Farkus breathing method. After a few minutes, the deduction ended, and the voice of the chip came. The deduction is over. It takes 20 minutes to practice the Farkus breathing method once. Each time you run it, you can improve the subject's physical fitness by 0.005 strength, 0.005 agility, and 0.003. This effect gradually decreases. The number of training times per day is 3 times. Exceeding it will cause physical damage. Seeing this result, Allen was excited. Sure enough, the breathing method in this world can be improved. As long as you persist in practicing, your physical fitness will improve, but the effect is a bit slow. Seeing that it takes more than an hour to complete the optimization and deduction of the Farkus breathing method, Allen had to wait anxiously. As time passed, Allen became more and more anxious. Finally, the last second passed, and the chip sounded. The optimization and deduction of the Farkus breathing method has been completed. The practice time is reduced by 3 minutes and 23 seconds. The effect of each practice is increased by 3%. The number of practices is 5 times a day. Exceeding the number of practices will cause physical damage. This result made Allen very satisfied. Moreover, this breathing method can be continuously improved. It seems that he has to learn from others every day when they practice. After all, other people's secret skills will definitely not be given to Allen. If he wants to collect breathing methods, he can only observe every day. In the carriage during the day, he could not practice, and could only let the chip simulate the practice. He hid in the corner, and closed his eyes to rest. No one else wanted to pay attention to him. Tony would not talk to him at this time, because he was afraid of being isolated. When it was time for lunch at noon, Allen was given a piece of bread, a piece of barbecue and some vegetables. He ate it up in a hurry, and felt warm in his body. Ding. Found food, which contains beneficial ingredients for the body. After eating, the body will increase by 0.0002. Allen, who was about to fall asleep in the car with his eyes squinting, woke up instantly. Chip. Check the reason for the increase. Ding. Barbecue, made from unknown animals, can slightly increase the body after eating. Chip. Create a file to record the food that can increase the body's fitness. After discovering that food can increase the body's fitness, Allen immediately realized that this was a treasure trove. As long as he found the right animals and plants, his physical fitness would be enhanced in a short time. Ding. The task has been established. Please collect the materials. After setting up camp at night, Allen took the opportunity to collect firewood to collect various plants in the wild. When he saw a leaf or a fruit of a plant, he would pick it and taste it. Then let the chip analyze the effect and create a file. Some plants have some slight toxins, but a small amount of consumption does not affect it, but most of them have no effect. There are many more tips that can be eaten, and there are also some medicinal materials. Allen has created a file to record them all. There are very few that can increase the body's fitness. So far, only the barbecue eaten at noon has a little effect. After picking up enough dead branches and trying all the plants nearby, Allen returned to the camp. The sky gradually darkened, and the bonfire was lit. After eating, everyone went back to rest. Allen stood beside the carriage and began to practice the Farkus breathing method. The black-robed knights on guard outside just glanced at them and stopped paying attention. For these knights, sending these people safely was the end of their mission. As for these people practicing the knight's breathing method, they didn't care. After practicing the knight's breathing method and swordsmanship, Allen took a shower and returned to the carriage to rest. No one disturbed him in the empty carriage. Chapter 4. Walking. In the silent forest, Allen stood there, holding a Red Bull in his left hand. The Red Bull was the eyeball of a mountain violent bear. The angry mountain violent bear's eyes would be bloodshot. At this time, you would get this Red Bull by killing the violent bear. It was a little elastic when you pinched it, and it looked like the bouncing ball you played with when you were a child. Looking at the red eyeball, Allen thought about it, wiped the blood off it, and swallowed it with nausea. Ding. Effective substances detected. Physical fitness increased by 0.001. The voice in his mind made Allen's face happy, but he was also a little disappointed. Although there were many mountain violent bears, they were not everywhere. It was impossible to have so much time to find them along the way. Although it was effective, he could only wait until he arrived at the destination to collect them. He swallowed another violent bear eyeball and began to find unverified plants to try. For those plants that were obviously poisonous, Allen did not try them. He caught a small animal and let the small animal eat it first. He would try it if there was no strong adverse reaction. During this period of time, Allen found a kind of flower. This flower has a slight paralytic effect on the body, but this flower can also enhance physical fitness. As the paralysis effect weakens, the increased physical fitness is also lower. This paralytic toxin can enhance physical fitness. Take away the plants that have not been eaten around and return to the temporary camp with a few prey. The long journey has caused the team to lack supplies. After all, white bread cannot be stored for a long time. If it is replaced with flour for storage, these people do not have the skills to turn flour into bread. The first 2 months were okay. The place I walked through was not desolate. I would pass through towns from time to time and find bakers in the town to make some bread and take it with me. The white robes in front are said to be wizards, but the wizards don't pay much attention to these children. They carry a lot of food themselves, but they won't give it to these children. Since entering this wilderness for half a month, except for the durable food and wine, all other desserts and breads have been consumed. So the food needs to be solved by these children themselves. At the beginning, Ryan still held his identity to negotiate with the wizards, but he was taught a lesson by those white-robed wizards. After understanding the reality, these children began to find food by themselves. Allen was happy to see this, because in this way he would have enough time to collect various plants, eat them and collect data. This kind of thing seemed normal to Allen, but it was different from the nobles, who called Allen Goat Allen behind his back. Tony was now in a group with Allen. After finding food, he came back to roast it. The others were scattered in many groups and divided into small teams. The children in these carriages came from many places. Like Allen, Tony and a few others belonged to the Kingdom of Krendia, while those led by Ryan came from the Principality of Misoya. The two countries were adjacent and there were many dirty things. Some came from the Southern Sulang Alliance, where dozens of city-states united to form a federal country with developed commerce. In these countries, there were small groups, and there were too many dirty things among the nobles, but these were not important. The most important thing was to join a wizard organization. Allen also got a lot of news about wizards during these days of traveling together. The wizard organization was located in another continent, so they had to gather at the gathering place first, and then leave by boat. Fighting is allowed in this team, but casualties are not allowed. Once the white-robed wizards appear, they will come to teach you how to be a new person. They will be responsible for your safety, but when you are free, don't disturb them. It is said that these wizards are all wizard apprentices, and there are formal wizards in the gathering place. It has been a month since I came to this world, and Allen Farkus breathing method has been deduced and optimized many times. Every day, I secretly observe other people's practice, collect data, and then let the chip deduce and optimize. With a large amount of data deduction, the Farkus breathing method at this time has doubled the effect of the original one. This breathing method is not weaker than the royal breathing method. After a month of practice, plus finding things that can increase attributes from time to time to improve physical fitness, Allen's physical fitness has made great progress. Ding. The two iron swords collided with each other, making a crisp sound, and one of them was directly bounced off. I won. Allen had a smile on his lips, and Tony twitched his mouth. You are really a monster. I'm a genius, Allen said shamelessly. Come and practice for a while. Allen continued to invite. No more fighting, no more fighting. I used to be able to beat you, but I haven't beaten you since last week. I won't fight you again, after losing so many times. Tony rolled his eyes and said he would not fight you again. Tony, how far are you from becoming a knight? Allen thought about it and asked, wanting to confirm his own strength. I'm only a high-level knight apprentice now, and I'm still far from becoming a knight. If you want to break through to becoming a knight, you have to break through a barrier. Once you cross this barrier, your physical fitness will increase significantly, but this barrier is not easy. Many people have to experience life and death battles to stimulate their potential. But why are you asking this? When you become the lowest level wizard apprentice, you will be stronger than a knight. Tony thought about it and said, the lowest level wizard apprentice is stronger than a knight. So how impressive is a formal wizard? Allen thought about it and sighed. Knight. As long as you have breathing techniques, systematic training, and sufficient food, it is still very likely to achieve it, but wizards must have qualifications. Once you become a wizard, not to mention a knight, even a great knight is not good enough. Tony also said with a look of longing. Grand Knight. Have you seen a Grand Knight? Allen asked casually after hearing Tony's words. Grand Knight is a higher level of knight. No matter where they are definitely big shots. If they are lucky, they will be entertained by the king. If they are willing to be loyal, they will be appointed as the head of the legion. They have trained their bodies to the extreme. They are like a meat grinder on the battlefield. Unless they are assisted by a volley of crossbows, even heavy cavalry can't stop them. Allen has never seen what level the head of the legion is, but the Earl is at the same level as him. He is the local emperor of the province. The volley of crossbows is more powerful than bullets. The heavy cavalry is called a cold weapon tank. The armor weighing hundreds of kilograms plus people and horses weighs nearly a ton. This is simply a Superman. I didn't expect that the physical training in this world is so powerful. According to this standard, wizards can no longer be considered human beings. With such a powerful force, Allen finally understood what kind of power wizards possess. Chapter 5 Attack. Under the moonlight, boys and girls in the camp were playing around everywhere. The concept of sex in this world is very open, of course, that is for the nobles. According to the things in memory, there are things like the right of first night in some places in this world. The right of first night means that when the commoners in the territory get married, the bride must be sent to the lord on the night of the wedding, and then leave the next day. You can imagine how backward this world is. It's really too hey, being a lord here, I'm criticizing. These boys and girls may find a corner to become wild mandarin ducks if they fall in love. After the exercise, Allen is now sweating. He came to the river The gurgling river water hit the stones, making a sound that could be heard far away in the woods at night. Chip. Adjust my physical fitness. Allen Farkus strength. 1.6 agility. 1.5 constitution. 1.8 status. Healthy. With the practice of breathing, Allen's physical fitness has surpassed most of his peers and is not much worse than Tony in sparring. After reading the attributes, Allen smiled proudly. He caught up with others who had worked hard for several years in just 1 month. The role of the chip can be imagined. Chip. Scan the surrounding environment. Allen ordered. The forest at night was not as calm as it seemed. Who knew if there was any danger in the dark? Ding, the surrounding environment scan is over. No abnormality was found within 500 meters. The information fed back by the chip made Allen feel relieved. The distance of 500 meters was enough to leave reaction time. He doesn't want to ask for help with his bear, but when taking a shower, taking off the outer cover and underwear, the cold river water washed away the stains on his body. The day of recruiting apprentices every 10 years is getting closer. At this time, Allen and his party walked in the swamp. The hot and humid air made the group of teenagers very bored, but fortunately there was a wizard with them. This was also the first time Allen saw supernatural power. As the wizard moved forward, the slippery and rotten ground hardened directly. The carriage walked over easily. The ground was still mud, but it became hard. Looking at this spell, Allen felt infinite emotion in his heart. Listening to the teenagers around him, this is just some tricks of witchcraft, not witchcraft at all. Although the road was easy to walk on, the mosquitoes were too numerous to bear. No one wanted to camp in this hellhole and leave the swamp overnight. But even if people were not tired, they had to consider the feelings of the horses. They still had to rest. Allen found a plant in the swamp. This plant was more than 1 meter tall and grew upright. It was covered with willow-shaped leaves and exuded a fragrance. The juice of this plant could be used to repel mosquitoes. Even other poisonous insects hated the taste. It just caused tongue paralysis when eaten. When Allen first discovered it, he asked a small animal to taste it and found that there was nothing abnormal. Then he tried it himself. As a result, his tongue was numb for a whole day and he couldn't speak. Fortunately, no one talked to him. Otherwise these people would have laughed to the end with this joke. The chip analyzed that this plant can repel insects, which is a blessing in disguise. Others were enduring mosquito bites, but Allen was lying in the carriage, and not even a mosquito had bothered him. Because of the swamp terrain, hunting is not easy. Now everyone eats the dry food stored before entering. Flour is added with salt to make bread, which can be stored for a long time after drying. When eating, you need to break it up little by little and soak it in water, but there are not many clean water sources in the swamp, so you can only hold it in your mouth and soften it with saliva before swallowing it. You can imagine how it tastes. When entering the depths of the swamp, the situation is even more serious. The cause is that a teenager stood a little further away during the rest and was instantly swallowed by a crocodile hidden in the water like a rotten wood. This crocodile is huge, more than 6 meters long, with sharp teeth like a sharp dagger. It usually looks like a piece of rotten wood when floating on the river, but as long as someone is alive, the animal will explode instantly, and the exaggerated huge mouth will swallow the person directly into the stomach. The hunting speed is as fast as lightning, and there is no chance for the black-robed knights and 3 white-robed wizards to rescue. Although this crocodile was directly frozen into ice by the angry white-robed wizard, the dead companion will not be resurrected. For a moment, these boys and girls were like frightened birds. After all, these people had been living a life of luxury since childhood and had never been in danger. Seeing their companions who had been traveling with them for months become snacks for the giant beast, the blow can be imagined. The sky gradually darkened, and the carriage came to an open space and stopped. The leading wizard checked it and nodded to rest here today. How long will this life last? I'm going crazy. A boy with freckles on his face said angrily. It is said that it will take another week. Just bear with it. We will reach the west coast soon. Another older boy said. Oh my god. It will take another week. I can't stand this kind of life for a day. There is no bed, no bread, no bath water. I can't stand it. The freckled boy looked crazy and looked like he had no desire to live. If you can't hold on, you can go down and live. You can set up a tent, go hunting and take a bath. As long as you think you can survive, you can do it. Another venomous man sneered. Okay, Alpha, stop talking. You still have the energy to argue at this time. The older boy saw that the two were about to quarrel and quickly suppressed the tendency. Think about it, as long as you go to the wizard organization and join it, you will become a wizard apprentice. Those knights who used to be high and mighty will respect you. Power, beauty, or a longer life. What are these sufferings now? A bright future is waiting for you. While cheering up the freckled boy, it seemed that he was talking to himself and others around him. Allen had reservations about this statement. The wizard organization is not a charity. Joining will get such good treatment. However, looking at the people around him who were about to collapse, Allen still held back from saying what was in his heart. There was a regular knock on the door. It was time to go out for some fresh air. While it was not dark yet, everyone in the car began to solve physiological problems. Some people went to exercise their bodies. After all, they had to rest in the car later. Allen took advantage of the fresh air to look for plants around. There are many strange species in the swamp. While taking a walk in the evening, Allen discovered another plant. This plant is very similar to reeds. The rhizome can increase strength, but it tastes very bitter and has a slight toxin. It is named bitterroot reed. Eat it every day according to the maximum consumption. The last collection has been eaten up. It has increased 0.1 strength. The medicinal effect has not completely disappeared. It should be able to be eaten for a few more days. Grab the cross sword and walk towards the surrounding swamp while letting the chip scan the surrounding for danger. The chip's early warning gives him enough time to react, and he will not be like the unlucky guy who was swallowed directly, who has no time to react. Chapter 6 Green Poison Frog. Stepping on the slippery swamp, Allen stretched his back deeply. The narrow carriage did not have much room for movement. The swamp under the setting sun looked like a beautiful oil painting, but there was no shortage of danger in this painting. A rotten piece of wood next to the fallen tree in the distant pond was a disguised crocodile. There was also a black mamba lurking among the water plants. The venom of this snake would kill even a knight-level warrior if bitten. If treatment was not timely, the probability of death was very high. It only took 10 minutes from poisoning to death. Don't go far away. Don't act alone. Go early and come back early. It's not safe here, a leading teenager said, and everyone left in twas and threes. The green interface was projected on the retina, which was a topographic map with a radius of 500 meters with Allen as the center. Green light spots indicated no danger, and red ones were existences that could threaten the subject's life. Those knights were all red light spots, and the chip did not try to test the wizards at all. Arriving at the waterside, he looked for bitterroot reeds. This plant is rare. After searching for a long time, he only found a few. He could eat them for 3 days at most. He looked at the sky. It was already dark, so Allen stopped looking. Chip. Call up my current physical data. Ding. Allen Farkus has a strength of 1.7, agility of 1.6, and a physical fitness of 1.8. The chip quickly gave the result. It's growing very slowly. During this period, the physical fitness at Farkus' breathing method can improve, has become less and less, and it takes more time. It seems that the limit of this breathing method is approaching. If you want to improve it further, you can only break through the night. However, there is no detailed data on how to break through. It just says to activate the seed of life. But what exactly this concept is still unclear. Maybe I can only find the answer in the wizard organization. After all, the wizards in the legend are all polymaths. After putting away the processed bitterroot reeds, Allen returned to the temporary camp, had a quick dinner, and went back to the carriage to rest. The moonlight was slightly cool at night, and there were slight paddling sounds in the swamp pool, and from time to time there were a few frogs croaking. The draft horse pulling the cart snorted a few times and shook its tail. Suddenly, Allen, who was resting, sat up straight. Beep. Warning. Warning. A large group of dangerous creatures are approaching. Dense red dots appeared on the light green map interface, and Allen's hair stood up instantly. He kicked Tony beside him to wake him up without checking. Get up quickly, the enemy is attacking. Then he pushed the door of the carriage and shouted, enemy attack. Before the voice fell, more than 30 black-robed knights had drawn their weapons. Then the moonlight allowed everyone to see clearly that there were dense frogs gathered in the pool. The frogs were dark green in color, and their green eyes made Allen's scalp numb. Then the frog that was approaching jumped up and spit out a green liquid directly from its mouth. Be careful, that's acid splashing. This is a green poison frog. Damn, how can there be so many green poison frogs? Don't get splashed by acid. That liquid is toxic and corrosive. John, go get the kerosene from the wagon behind. These ghosts hate fire and light. A black-robed knight quickly came to the horse field, where the supplies were piled, and began to search. Allen turned over and went outside, picked up the crossbow on the frame and aimed. Chip, simulate the scene, mark the best angle of the target. Allen did not fire hastily, but let the chip find the best target. 9 o'clock direction, raise your arm 15 degrees. According to the data given by the chip, Allen shot a crossbow arrow, and the green poison frog that had just jumped up and was about to spit acid was pierced through the head by an arrow and fell down. There was no time to see the results of the battle, so he quickly loaded the crossbow arrow, and then, under the prompt of the chip, nailed the green poison frog that had broken through the knight's defense circle to the ground. These green poison frogs are under the defense. It is easy to be killed, but its innate acid splash can barely be considered magic, which can poison people, and is also corrosive. Although it is not as strong as sulfuric acid, it should not be underestimated. Once it sticks, it is like a fire. The most headache is the number. There are thousands of them densely packed. The noble boys in the car also got off the car and picked up weapons to fight, but the frogs are not big, and it is not easy to shoot them with bows and arrows. A few brave ones came forward to attack with weapons, and these green poison frogs were easily killed. After seeing this, the noble girls around praised them again and again. These boys were praised like heroes. Allen just took a few glances and continued to shoot the green poison frogs with a crossbow. He raised his hand and shot the green poison frog directly with one arrow. The arrow cluster kept nailing the back one to the ground. Beep beep. Alarm alarm. There is an energy reaction, and the surrounding radiation suddenly increased. It is recommended to stay away immediately. It is recommended to stay away. Suddenly a series of alarm sounds came into my mind, and a red warning appeared in front of me. Before he could find out what was wrong, Allen found that the young men and women around him were all staring at one side in amazement. Turning his head, he saw a cone of flames instantly covering the 5-meter range in front of him on the right. A smell of burnt protein came out, and the densely packed green poison frogs on the water surface were instantly burned into black charcoal, and the muddy beach was also burned dry and hard. Allen was shocked. Although he knew that there was supernatural in this world, he was still unwilling to believe it after decades of experience in his previous life. However, this powerful magic also deeply shocked him. These white-robed wizards were just apprentices, and the magic and witchcraft they used must not be very good. Only then did he realize how powerful wizards were. The noble men and women around him were even more adoring. At this time, 2 black-robed knights also found grease and pushed the barrel over directly. One of the wizards muttered something in his mouth, and Allen's heart moved. The chip records the language. Ding, the task is established. Record the language. As the spell was finished, the barrel of grease was like a life, and it instantly covered the ground and the water. The other wizard also finished the spell at this time. With a point of the cane, a football-sized fireball landed directly in the middle of the group of green poison frogs. With a boom sound, a huge pit was instantly blown out of the pool of water. The surrounding grease met the open flame and caught fire with a bang. All the green poison frogs around were wrapped in the sea of fire. The flames soared high, and everyone's hair began to curl. The air was filled with the smell of barbecue. Seeing the 3 white-robed wizards casually destroy the group of green poison frogs that were enough to annihilate everyone, the group of children instantly quieted down. Allen remembered this scene deeply in his heart and looked forward to becoming a wizard more and more. Looking around, the casualties were not large. Only one unlucky guy was splashed with acid on his face. Although his life was not in danger, his face was considered useless. Although the other few were injured, they were not a big problem. After a while, a black-robed knight came over with ointment. The red ointment was very effective. He touched the injured people and saw that their expressions gradually relaxed. It seemed that the poison was also eliminated. After this battle, Allen looked at the time, and it was about 3 in the morning. However, after such a sneak attack, these people must have had trouble sleeping. Chapter 7 Port. Despair Swamp. If it weren't for these wizards, we wouldn't be able to get out with our own strength. Sitting in the carriage, Allen was thinking in his heart. At this time, they had already left the Despair Swamp. There were no major troubles in the 6-day journey, but there were some blind beasts attacking the convoy. Only a few knights solved them. The only threat was a python that was tens of meters long. This python could use poison to attack, and its physical strength was amazing. However, the 3 white-robed wizards took some time to solve it. By the way, they also dismembered the giant python, collected a lot of things, and put them into a palm-sized pocket. This pocket should be the legendary storage bag. It looks like the size of a palm, but the things put in it weigh at least 100 pounds. Allen has always been jealous of this thing, and wanted to take it in his hand to study it, but thinking of the fate of the giant python, he sat in the carriage honestly. During this period, Allen spent a lot of time analyzing the magic used by the wizard that night, but the information was really pitiful and there was no breakthrough. I only know that those spells are in ancient languages, and the original owner is really uneducated and has never read such books. As the forests continue to shrink, traces of human activities appear in the wilderness, and the people in the carriage finally no longer suppress themselves. When they set up camp, these crazy boys and girls are having fun in the camp. Hey, Allen, look. Tony secretly pointed at a few girls not far away. Buddy is safe now. Don't you plan to communicate with them? Tony said in Allen's ear, as if you know what I mean. Allen shook his head and said, go and have fun. I'm not in the mood now, but can't you calm down a little and don't look like you're horny? If you scare people away, you can only rely on your hands to achieve your dreams. Put away your clothes. After speaking, he glanced at Tony's collar, and there was still a lipstick mark on the collar of his clothes. This animal relies on his good looks, and I don't know who he has hooked up with again. Brothers are about to part. This is a parting gift. Really, don't you think about it? Tony put his arm around Allen's shoulders and looked like he was relying on me. Smelling the powder on this guy, Allen reached out and pulled his hand away. I still have to exercise. I don't have time to go. You go, but don't be squeezed dry. After saying that, he shook his head and found an open space to continue training the knight's breathing method. Then I'll go by myself. He waved to Allen's figure and ran to the circle where the group of girls were. Walking all the way west, a town has appeared at this time. The life of the savages has come to an end. After replenishing supplies in the town, they continue to set off. Half a month later, they finally saw a coast in the distance. This is a port city. The morning light pierced the morning mist of the harbor, and the breeze blew a smell of the sea. A row of more than a dozen carriages came on the official road. It was Allen and his party. This is the transfer station for enrollment every 10 years. This is the largest port on the west coast and the place where the wizard fleet docks. The west coast and the eastern countries are separated by the Swamp of Despair. If you want to bypass it, you have to walk several times more. The west coast has also formed more than a dozen countries of varying sizes. The largest port on the west coast is a special area under the jurisdiction of wizards. Every time qualified children are recruited, they start from here. The carriages of the crowd arrived at a place like a market. There were tall and short tents standing in a row, and there were many other carriages that seemed to be transporting children. The most common children in the market were 13 or 14 years old. There were also some older people with curious faces. There were hundreds of people in total, and they would enter some of the tents from time to time. Okay. Come down, everyone. This is the transit camp, and it is also the place where various wizard organizations recruit students. You go to the tent on the far left first. That is where your wizard qualifications are tested. The tents on the right are the tents where various organizations recruit people. You can go there by yourself. After the carriage stopped at the market, the white-robed wizard came out and gathered everyone together and said, "Now, follow me into the market and choose your future. But remember, you can check and ask, but once you sign a contract, you can't regret it. Otherwise, the wizard will tell you the price that the person who breaks his promise will pay. I believe you will never want to try it." At this time, another person came out of the market. Several white-robed wizards hurriedly bowed their heads and greeted Lord Emile. He glanced at the many young men with a cold face, and after looking around, he nodded slightly and said to the white-robed wizards, "Your mission is completed." He took out a token casually, and his finger flashed into the token. Then he threw the token to the leading white-robed wizard and said, "Okay, follow me in." Emil said as he walked, "There is a sign over there for precautions. You can check it yourself. Now go and test your qualifications first." Then many boys and girls began to line up, and people from other places around joined in. Name. A cold voice sounded at the front. John. In front of it was a young man who looked very nervous, and even showed fear and timidity in his eyes, and spoke a little stutteringly. Age. Yeah, 15. After casually glancing at the boy in front of him, the man picked up a pen and began to write continuously, apparently leveling some basic information. He casually handed the paper to the boy named John. "Go in," the cold voice ordered. Hearing this, the boy felt as if he had been pardoned and quickly walked into the tent. Name. The voice continued to ring. Angela. A girl's voice sounded in front. Angela had wavy blonde hair, a curvy figure, and a fair face, looking like a princess. Soon it was Alan's turn. Name. Alan. Hearing the question from the man in front of him, Alan calmly said his name and stood quietly in place. Age 14. Beep. Unknown radiation is detected covering the main body. It is recommended to stay away. At this time, a mechanical voice suddenly came from his mind. Alan's heart tightened, his body was a little stiff, and he felt like he was stripped naked. He took the form with both hands and left and went into the tent. This was just an age test, and other tests had to be done in the tent. Entering the tent was not as narrow as imagined. After entering, I found that the space in the tent was unexpectedly large. The tent was divided into several small spaces, each blocked by a curtain, and no sound could be heard from inside. There were still a few people queuing in front of the tent on the far left. Alan observed the tent, and then stood at the end of the line. This was the place for the next part of the test. At this time, a voice came from the compartment. "Come in." The person at the front of the line took a deep breath when he heard the voice, lifted the curtain, and entered the compartment. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8. Choosing a College. A few minutes later, another person went in, and soon it was Alan's turn. Next. Hearing the voice, Alan hurried in. The tent was very empty. There was only a middle-aged man sitting behind a black chair. There was a crystal ball on the table, and he respectfully placed the form in his hand on the table. "Put your hand on this crystal ball." A cold voice sounded in his ears. The middle-aged man signaled with his eyes and said. Alan stretched out his hand and placed it on the crystal ball in front of him. "Close your eyes and feel it carefully." A misty voice sounded. The unique touch slowly came from the palm of his hand, with a unique feeling of heat gradually spreading throughout the body. In his ears, as he closed his eyes, the voice gradually came, until deep in his mind, Alan's will became more and more blurred. Ding. Unknown radiation force field detected, with a strong hallucinogenic effect on the subject. A mechanical voice came from his mind, but although he heard it, his body did not obey, and slowly fell asleep. A hazy feeling came over him, and he felt drowsy, as if he had entered a dream. A ray of light gradually broke through the darkness, and illuminated the eyes. Third level qualification, not bad. The middle-aged man nodded, took out a quill pen, and wrote a few words on Alan's form. Then he took out a seal, and stamped a mark on the paper. "Okay, the test here is over, you go to the back." After saying that, he waved his hand. Reaching out to take the form, Alan quickly walked to a curtain behind him. Next. After such a long journey, Alan also knew these basic information, such as qualifications. Level 5 qualifications are the highest, and level 1 qualifications are the lowest. In the room behind the curtain was a charming young woman, with seductive eyes and rosy lips, which was very attractive. She was wearing a red tights, a velvet shawl on the outside, and a small fan in her hand. But Alan didn't dare to have any thoughts. There was nothing in the room, and there was a 6-pointed star formation in the open space next to it. The woman's voice also had a lazy taste. She glanced at Allen's form and pointed at the small fan in her hand. Stand up. Allen walked into the formation and saw the young woman snap her fingers. Instantly, the formation lightened up slightly, and Allen felt a box in front of him, as if he was in a dark room. Ding, unknown force field detected. Radiation concentration exceeds the warning line. Host, please stay away. Relax, what can you feel? A voice came from all directions. After hearing the voice, Allen took a deep breath and relaxed. Gradually, he began to feel some light spots appearing around him. Red was the most, and there were also green, khaki, and black, but the total was less than a quarter of the red. At this time, another voice came. What do you see? Allen said, light spots, a lot of light spots. What color? Red, green, black, yellow. How many are there? Red is the most, 3/4, and the others add up to a quarter. Another snap of the fingers, the light spots disappeared, and Allen regained his senses. His body stood in the same place without moving, and Allen looked confused. You have completed the test. In terms of elemental affinity, flame is the highest, followed by plant, shadows and the earth, but they are all weak. The beautiful young woman used a small fan to scratch the form, and a line of words appeared on it, flickering and dimming. She handed the form to Allen casually. Okay, your test is over. We will be in the back. When you go out, you can go to choose a college with the certificate. Allen saluted and left the tent. It was already noon outside the tent. Several people who came out first were already checking the notice board. Allen walked over quickly to check. There were icons on it, followed by names, and at the end were the witchcraft factions that this college was good at. At the top was an eye blind eye good at spells, curses, astrology. Requirements: female. There is no requirement for elemental affinity. Tower of Ghosts good at undead, shadows, summoning. Requirements: elemental affinity. Shadow Lilith's magic house good at elemental spells, alchemy. Requirements: elemental affinity above level 2. Black Crow College good at shadows, summoning. Requirements: element affinity. Shadow Lava Valley proficient in fire, earth, summoning. Requirements: element affinity. Fire, earth. Five Rings Tower proficient in fire, earth, ice, plants, summoning. Requirements: element affinity level 2 or above. Emerald Tower proficient in plants, earth, potions. Requirements: element affinity, plants, earth. Misty Castle, Mesopotamian Academy. After reading it, Allen thought about it and found that the most suitable ones for him were Lava Valley and Five Rings Tower. Lava Valley was good at 2. Although it is better to be proficient in 1 than to be proficient in 100 things, Allen wanted to learn more about the magic of this world and was inclined to the Five Rings Tower. Hey, Allen, have you made up your mind? Tony suddenly jumped out from behind. I'll have to watch it for a while. What about you, Tony? Allen said after taking a look. I have a token of the Misty Castle at home. The qualification level 3 also meets the requirements. I'm going to the Misty Castle, Tony said proudly. Then congratulations. Allen smiled sincerely. Although Tony was a little unreliable, they got along well along the way. The most important thing was that he helped Allen when he was injured. Oh, by the way, there are some things I need to tell you in advance, Tony said to Allen in a sneaky way. What is it? Allen followed him in confusion. If you choose an academy, try not to choose a dark wizard. Although dark wizards do not charge tuition fees, the instructors there are very dangerous. Many times they will force apprentices to cooperate with some human experiments. Such experimental classes are unsafe and the probability of death is very high. Sometimes even if you don't die, you will become a monster that is neither human nor ghost. You can only gain powerful power if you are very lucky. Tony looked around and saw that no one noticed this, so he whispered. Allen's pupils suddenly shrank and nodded. I know. Thank you for reminding me. I will pay attention. Human experiments are not guaranteed, and Allen knew it was extremely dangerous when he heard it. However, dark wizards are indeed stronger, and their mortality rate is the highest. Just keep it in mind. Don't say anything. Tony looked around and found that no one noticed here, then pretended to be calm and said, Allen, remember to notify me when you have chosen which academy to go to. I will visit you when I have time, but I still hope you can be in the same academy as me. I will notify you after I join the academy, Allen said with a smile. Chapter 9 Five Ring Tower. After saying goodbye to Tony, Allen began to wander aimlessly in the camp. Those strange shaped tents opened his eyes. There were various styles, but the most bizarre ones were the black wizards. The tents were built in a gloomy way, clearly telling others that it was scary and there was a big devil inside. Each one was decorated like a haunted house. Although there was no tuition fee and no qualification requirements, there were very few people going there. After a walk around and asking for information, I learned that the Five Rings Tower was a white wizard organization, but the white wizards were not just academics, otherwise it would be impossible to force the black wizards to honestly abide by the rules and recruit people. They would have intercepted them halfway and snatched all the apprentices away. There was a griffin painted on the tent of the Five Rings Tower, and the color of the tent was sea blue. As soon as I entered the tent, a kind of incense was lit in the tent. As soon as I entered, I felt a shock in my spirit, and even my mind became much clearer. An old man with a white beard was sitting behind a seat, reading a book seriously. He slowly raised his hand when he heard the movement. I didn't expect that there would be new blood joining on the last day. The old man said to himself, "Hello, Mr. Wizard. I want to join the Five Rings Tower. This is my qualification certificate." Allen did not look down on this old man, who was about to die. He handed over the form respectfully. He took it and looked at Allen and said, "My name is Kane." The old man's movements were not as old as he looked. He stood up, looked around Allen, looked down at the form, nodded and said, "You meet the standards. You can go through the admission procedures as long as you pay 5 magic stones. Before you came here, I think you have learned about the regulations of the Five Rings Tower. Can you abide by them?" "Yes. This is a contract. Pay 5 magic stones and you can join after signing it." Kane took out a piece of parchment from a space bag and handed it to Allen. "According to the contract, if you choose to join our Five Rings Tower, you can get basic courses in the Five Rings Tower, a set of elementary meditation methods, and free residence for the first 3 years. After that, you have to pay 2 magic stones every year, and you can pay magic stones and other rewards to exchange knowledge with the classrooms. The library will also be open to a limited extent. Your safety will be protected within the academy." Allen picked up the contract and checked it. The contract was written on high quality lambskin and used the common language of the continent. It listed various requirements and obligations, and finally the rights you can enjoy. Chip. Scan and compare to see if there are any language traps. Ding. Create a task and start scanning. Ding. Scan completed, and the scan results found no text traps. After Allen checked it, he took out a small bag from his arms, took out 5 green stones slightly larger than his thumb and said, "I understand the basic situation. This is my admission fee." He handed over the magic stone. He reached out to take the magic stone, and it disappeared with a flip of his palm. His hand flashed again, and a silver quill pen appeared in his hand. Allen took the quill pen. The quill pen with a metallic luster was as light as nothing. He was surprised and wrote his name at the bottom of the contract. Then he handed it to Kane. Kane nodded after reading it and filled in the 5 Ring Tower on the form. He took out a token with a number 30 on it and handed it to Allen. "Gather at the port tomorrow morning. This is your identity certificate. There is a place to rest in the back. Remember, don't be late. Okay, go out." "Well, I'll go first, sir." Allen bowed, then left the tent, did not stay here, and went directly to the back of the tent. There was a row of wooden houses here, which looked luxuriously decorated. Several boys and girls came in and out, which should be here. Came to the door marked with number 30. With a gentle push, the door opened. There were no extra objects in the room, only a bed and a few tables, chairs, and benches. But the room was clean and covered with velvet that only nobles could enjoy. It seemed that there was an urge to pounce on it. Dong dong dong, a knock on the door sounded. Allen opened the door. There were several young men about 13 or 14 years old standing in front of the door. They asked with a puzzled look, "What do you want to do?" "Hello, we are the new apprentices of the Five Rings Tower. Excuse me, are you one too?" one of the tall ones said. "Yes." Allen nodded. Great, we have a new partner. We are going to have a dinner party. Do you want to join us? Said the tall boy. Allen was just trying to find out more about wizards in the Five Rings Tower, so he nodded and agreed. Following a few people to a restaurant, the restaurant was a buffet with rich food, which made Allen, who had been eating dry food all the way, very hungry. He picked a lot of food he liked, and chatted with everyone while eating. We are all new blood of the Five Rings Tower. I feel very honored. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Carrot, from the kingdom of GIs, and I'm a noble, but it doesn't matter. Wizards are much more noble than nobles. I'm a 4th class qualification. The tall and strong man introduced. Everyone followed suit and introduced themselves. Except for one 4th class qualification, the others were 2nd class or 3rd class. After Allen finished his introduction, everyone started eating. Joel, didn't you say there was news about the wizarding continent? Tell us about it. Another little girl named Monica asked. Don't worry, wait until I finish this barbecue. Hurry up and tell me, I'm so anxious. Everyone urged. The skinny boy then said proudly, another ancestor of my family studied in the Five Rings Tower several generations ago. The notes he left behind said that we don't actually live on the mainland, but the Flynn Islands. You need to take an ark to go to the wizard continent. That is a land ruled by wizards. It is beautiful and rich. Unlike here, there are very few demonized animals and plants and the resources are scarce. But it is also very dangerous there. Many demonized creatures are no worse than formal wizards. The Five Rings Tower is the ruler of the Crescent Land, and if you want to become a wizard, it depends on your qualifications. The 5th grade qualification is the highest known grade. As long as you don't die halfway, there is a 90% chance of successful advancement. The 4th grade has a 50% chance, the 3rd grade is 1/10, and the 1st and 2nd grades are 1%. It is said that after entering the academy, those with 4th and 5th grade qualifications will be directly accepted as disciples by mentors, while the others can only be assigned randomly. It's okay if you meet a good-tempered and responsible instructor. Although they won't give you preferential treatment, they will teach you knowledge seriously. If you meet one with a bad temper and weird temper, you will be in trouble. They will only teach you once, and they won't care about you anymore if you can't remember it. In addition to the basic knowledge taught by the academy, if you want to learn advanced knowledge, you need an equivalent exchange. Magic stones are the currency among students. If you want to learn advanced knowledge, you need to buy it with magic stones. Chapter 10 Setting Sail. After dinner, everyone walked back with laughter. Seeing the sign of the Misty Castle not far away, Allen said hello to everyone and went to find Tony. While they were still together, he told him about joining the academy. As soon as they entered the residential area, a girl with freckles came towards them. She was one of Allen's companions. Hello, Ruth. Do you know which room Tony is in? Tony is in room 9. I'll take you there. Seeing Allen, Ruth smiled and greeted him, lifting the hem of her skirt to lead the way for Allen. There was a faint smell of perfume in the air. Allen. As soon as she turned the corner, she saw Tony standing in the corridor and laughing with a few girls. After seeing Allen, she hurriedly greeted him and walked over quickly. Have you chosen the academy? Tony put his arm around Allen's shoulders. Yes, I've chosen the Five Rings Tower. Allen nodded. The Five Rings Tower is quite far from the Misty Castle, but the Five Rings Tower is the strongest among our academies. We should keep in touch in the future. What about the Misty Castle? With your qualifications, you should be treated preferentially. Yes, there will be a tutor, and you can attend several advanced courses every month. Have you heard that there is a genius with level 5 qualifications among us? Tony said with envy. Your level 4 qualifications are not much worse. Don't be envious. I can't do it. I'm only level 3. Allen said enviously. Level 3 qualifications are ordinary stuff, and according to his understanding, the cost of Wizard Academy is not low, and it takes time to earn magic stones. Time is definitely not abundant, but it depends on the auxiliary function of the chip. After chatting for an hour, it was completely dark. After Allen and Tony parted ways, they went directly back to the gathering point of the Five Rings Tower. The next day, before dawn, the biological clock woke Allen up on time. After washing up, he sorted out his clothes and walked out of the room. There were already people standing outside the gathering point. When the time was approaching and everyone was present, they went directly to the dock under the guidance of a wizard. There was a huge ship docked at the dock. It was no less impressive than the aircraft carriers seen in the previous life. The huge ship had no sails and had 4 attics on it. Many apprentices stared at the giant in front of them in amazement. Allen was also shocked by this miraculous ark, and hundreds of apprentices began to line up to board the ship. "This is your room number," a grey-robed wizard said as he handed over the number plate. After finding the number plate, Allen got number 13 in area D, which was in the middle of the second floor of the deck, and the location was not bad. The giant ship set off that day, and Allen did not find the power device after turning around such a large ship. Later, I heard that this was an activated all-chemical life, not very intelligent, and was created by the joint efforts of dozens of wizard organizations, specifically for transporting colleges and cross-sea trade. When I got to the ship, I found that there were thousands of apprentices from other places on it, all of whom were recruited this time. The wizards who were responsible for recruiting apprentices rarely showed up after boarding the ship, and most of the apprentices stayed in the cabin and only came out for meals. There were no entertainment facilities on the Ark, which was boring. The speed of the ship was very fast. Allen had measured it with a chip. The Ark could reach a speed of about 50 nautical miles per hour. The hull did not make a splash of several feet high as imagined when it broke through the water. It seemed that this was also the effect of magic. Allen became more and more interested in the power system of this world. The Ark sailed on the sea. After the initial restraint, this group of boys and girls aged 14 or 15 returned to their previous appearance. The entire Ark was about 600 meters long and 80 meters wide at its widest point. There were 7 floors in total. The wizards lived in the upper 2 floors and rarely came out. The bottom floor stored supplies, and the rest was where these future wizards lived. Most of the children had never been to the deep sea, and it could even be said that many people had never seen the sea at all. They were shocked when they first came here. A group of people were excited to watch the sea on the deck, but the blue sea would become boring after watching it for a long time. Only the occasional deep sea monsters would make these people scream. Allen found that the sea area of this planet was much larger than that of the Earth. He had been in the deep sea for more than a month, but he still hadn't seen land. The monsters in the deep sea also shocked him. The largest blue whale on Earth was just a kid compared to the sea monsters here. He even saw a small island, which turned into a huge sea monster with a flip. The huge waves gave him the feeling of a tsunami, which made him extremely worried that these huge sea monsters would come to attack the Ark. But soon, Allen found that this worry was unnecessary. The wizard took out a piece of aquamarine crystal. The crystal flashed a few times, and a water blue ripple rippled on the Ark, sweeping over the sea monsters, and these sea monsters turned around and left. The days on the Ark were very boring. There were few entertainment activities in this world. Tarot cards were one of the few chess and card games, but the rules were too complicated, and not played much. Allen lost interest after playing a few times. After all, there was a chip cheat. He clearly remembered the position of each card in the cards in everyone's hand, and he would win, no matter how he played. Allen, are you going to continue telling stories today? Is the mermaid you told yesterday real? Quick, continue telling the story of Captain Jack. I want to know if he drank the water from the fountain of youth. I can't wait. Allen, you have to make it up to me. I didn't sleep well last night. I was thinking about this story. Please continue. Early in the morning, several boys and girls rushed into Allen's room, chattering. Ever since Allen told a few horror stories out of boredom and scared these children, listening to Allen's stories every day has become a fixed thing for these people. The number of people has also grown from a few to more than 20 now, and it is still expanding. After all, it is too boring to be on the sea. Ahem. Let's not talk about Captain Jack today. Let's talk about the sirens. As Allen spoke, everyone around him quieted down and looked at Allen expectantly. Sirens are very similar to mermaids. Both are women. They are a group of extremely beautiful creatures with terrifying power. Their singing voices are extremely charming. They like to sing on the rocks at sea, and passing ships can hear them from a long distance. The night is hazy, and an ark is sailing quietly on the sea. There are 2 moons of different colors in the sky. There is a mist on the sea. The surroundings are silent. Most people on the Ark have fallen asleep. The Ark belongs to all chemical life and does not need to be controlled. A faint sound sounded on the silent sea, like a mother's whisper, and like the sweetness of first love, which makes people involuntarily indulge in it. The sound gradually became clear, and even the people who fell asleep had a smile on their lips. The fog on the sea gradually became thicker, and the whole world seemed to have fallen asleep at this moment. P.S. Support the author's dream of remote rural areas and older single young men from voting for recommendations. Chapter 11 Arrival. As the singing spread, some movement gradually came from the Ark. In the moonlight, some black figures could be seen slowly walking forward. The figures gradually increased, and soon, more than a dozen figures appeared. The singing was intoxicating, like the whispers of a first lover in the air, or like a mother calling her wandering child away from home. One figure after another continued to appear, and slowly moved forward. If you look closely, you will find that this group of people actually all closed their eyes, with intoxicated and peaceful expressions, slowly walking towards the sea. Finally, the figure in the front walked to the edge of the Ark, then climbed over the fence, and jumped down without hesitation. The figures behind followed closely, jumping off the Ark one after another. Allen slept particularly sweetly today, as if he had returned to his mother's arms, wrapped in warmth, and there was a kind of intimate feeling constantly calling him to come closer. Allen could not help but follow the feeling, and move closer to that direction. As he got closer, the intimacy became clearer. Warning. Warning. The subject's will is affected. Please wake up as soon as possible. Do not indulge. A mechanical voice suddenly came to his ears. Allen looked a little struggling. He hesitated for a moment and continued to move forward. The mechanical voice disappeared. Warning. Warning. Please wake up as soon as possible. There is a radiation reaction ahead. But Allen had turned a deaf ear to it at this time and moved slowly following the song. Start the emergency awakening plan. Professor Yang's electric shock awakening method. Start. Allen, who was moving forward, suddenly felt a burst of pain, itching, soreness and numbness. His body was out of control, and he fell to the ground. His hands and feet kept twitching. His brain woke up instantly. At this time, he realized that he had left the cabin and stood on the deck. There were many people around him walking forward with a sleepwalking look on their faces. There was a plop plop sound of falling into the water in front. Allen, who reacted, broke out in a cold sweat. Cry. A piercing cry of an eagle was heard, and a giant eagle with a wingspan of several meters flew into the sky, followed by a loud shout, Caddis. You are looking for death. Then a bright light instantly pierced through the thick fog, and after a while, a loud boom was heard. The singing stopped abruptly, and the apprentices who were trapped in the dream immediately woke up and looked around with confusion. A seductive female voice sounded, Oris, do you like my gift? I can't forget you, but I didn't expect you to be so cruel and want to kill me. I'm here. Do you dare to come over? All apprentices enter the cabin and cover your ears. A figure appeared in the air, and the apprentices who were pardoned hurriedly ran to the cabin, not daring to stop for a moment. The figure pointed the staff in his hand at the Ark. Dozens of cables were instantly ejected from the Ark, and the cables were thrown into the sea, pulling up the apprentices and knights who were still struggling. Seeing that Oris did not respond, the thick fog was churning, and the next moment a huge wave as high as tens of meters rushed over with overwhelming momentum. Then several wizards appeared, and a flash of spiritual light appeared. Several water element giants several meters high appeared on the sea. As soon as these water element appeared, the churning waves began to decrease, and when they approached the Ark, they could no longer play any role. Allen and many apprentices who were still in shock hid in the cabin. There were constant explosions and shouts outside, mixed with some tempting songs, but this time no one rushed to listen. As if they had encountered something terrifying, they blocked their ears tightly, and many who could not resist even bit their lips hard. The cabin also began to shake, and everyone was shaken to the left and right, but no one dared to take their hands off their ears. They hid in the cabin in fear. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, the shaking became smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared, and there was no more explosion outside the cabin. Allen secretly put his hand down, and rubbed his slightly swollen forehead. For the first time, he felt a sense of awe for the supernatural power. Who would have thought that he could be controlled in his sleep? When the sky brightened, the Ark had already left the place where he was last night. While eating, Allen found that the number of people had decreased a lot. It seemed that most of the people who jumped into the sea last night drowned in the sea. Some well-informed apprentices already knew that it was some sea monsters that attacked the Ark last night. Those apprentices who had heard Allen's story looked at Allen with horror. A rumor was quietly spreading that the appearance of these sea monsters was because of Allen. Although these messages were nonsense, as soon as they were heard, no one came to listen to Allen's story since that day. The cabin no longer had the atmosphere of a leisurely vacation. Some apprentices were even afraid to sleep, for fear of jumping into the sea in their sleep again. All the apprentices were praying that the ship would dock as soon as possible. For a while, the ship fell into a dead silence. Allen was relieved without being disturbed by others. He also expressed helplessness about the appearance of the sea monster. I just told a story. Do these sea monsters have to give me face and come to chat with me at night? Time passed day by day. After a period of time, people finally forgot about this matter, and the Ark never encountered any sudden problems. 10 days later, the coastline appeared in the distance. When the ocean gradually disappeared and the land became more obvious, the atmosphere in the cabin finally became lively. Are we almost there? Looking at the land in the distance, this thought emerged in Allen's mind. The apprentices beside him were a little excited when they saw the land in the distance. There were cheers behind him. Some apprentices were celebrating in a low voice, and some apprentices began to say goodbye to each other. For a while, the cabin seemed to come alive. This is just the first stop. Others have to continue to take the ship. We are going to the end. I'm ready to become a great wizard. Some apprentices around began to talk in a low voice. After a while, the Ark began to slow down, slowly entered the port, and finally stopped. Apprentices from Goth College, Tower of Thorns, and Crimson College, please disembark here. Other apprentices who have not reached the end, please wait quietly here. Apprentices from these colleges began to walk down the gangway in twas and threes, returning to the familiar land. The faces of the apprentices were full of excitement, and they looked much more energetic. Soon, people wearing different styles of wizard robes took these apprentices away. After all the people disembarked, the Ark did not stay, but slowly left the port and sailed to the next place. However, this time the Ark did not enter the deep sea again, but sailed along the coastline. Some sailboats began to appear on the waterway from time to time. When they saw this huge ship, they began to avoid it from a distance. After the Ark left, they slowly left. Chapter 12 Enrollment. During this period, the Ark stopped several times, sending batches of wizards and apprentices off the ship. At this time, there were still half of the people on the Ark. Tony also said goodbye at the second stop. There were not many young people on the ship. Unknowingly, another day passed. Bang! The Ark suddenly stopped. We have arrived at the Five Rings Tower, Lilith's Magic House, and the Emerald Tower. The destinations are the apprentices of these academies. Please line up to disembark and gather at the designated location. A voice echoed in the cabin. Finally arrived. Allen stretched his body, packed up his gifts, and left the cabin, where he had lived for nearly 3 months. Kane, Weagle, count the number of people. The white-bearded old man took out a staff and looked at the people in front of him calmly. Yes. The two wizards nodded and began to count the number of people. Allen stood on the land and felt a little weak under his feet. It took a while for him to adjust. After drifting on the sea for several months, the bodies of these young people were a little weak. Many female apprentices couldn't help showing expressions of surviving a disaster, as if a nightmare had ended. Everyone follow. Let's go to the inn first. A grey-robed wizard said. Everyone followed and arrived at the inn. All the apprentices looked around curiously along the way. This is an extremely prosperous port city with a population of more than 200,000. In the Middle Ages with low productivity, this is a miracle, but considering the existence of wizards, it is not surprising. The races here are mostly blonde and blue-eyed white people, and there are also some orcs, but they all look like coolies. Warriors with swords can be seen everywhere. Allen used a chip scan to find that there are actually a large number of night level masters here. This discovery surprised Allen. The night level masters turned out to be mercenaries. Although this continent is ruled by wizards, knights should also be able to get a title, but it doesn't seem to be the case. The locals are very awed by wizards, and Allen feels that this, or is more of fear. Some nobles in gorgeous clothes came to greet them not far away, but they were sent away directly by the grey-robed wizard. The hotel was very luxurious. Although the accommodation conditions on the Ark were not bad, it was not as peaceful as sleeping on land. After finally finding a safe place to rest, many apprentices went back to the house to rest. The language used by the people here was not Colin. Allen recorded it with a chip, and found that the two languages had some similarities and a deep connection. Relying on the record analysis of the chip, Allen was barely able to communicate in this language. After a day of rest, the group set off in a carriage. Is this where the academy is? It looks a bit desolate. Allen looked around. There was desert all around, and there were a few small paths. You could see traces of people walking. Not far away was a semi-weathered rock. The rock was severely eroded by wind, and there were a few words written in black font on it. Knowledge is the source of power. The Five Rings Tower. We are here. Everyone follow. A grey-robed wizard said. The grey-robed wizard waved his wand in the air a few times, and the aura flew from it. An invisible light curtain appeared out of thin air, then dissipated. The naked eye could see ripples in the real world. A crack appeared in the space. The front was no longer a gobi desert, but a swamp. Follow up, don't deviate from the road. The grey-robed wizard turned around and said seriously. Although there are apprentices from the academy who clean up here regularly, there are still some magical creatures living here. If you fall behind, I think they will be very happy to accept this delicious lunch. Also don't look at those trees. The twisted and strange trees in the swamp swayed in the wind. The patterns on the trees looked like hideous human faces, with fear, pain, sadness, and all kinds of expressions vividly. Looking at the faces on the trees, Allen gradually felt drowsy, as if someone was constantly whispering in his ears. Just when Allen wanted to hear these words clearly, the chip suddenly sounded an alarm. Beep, beep, beep. Scan to find that the subject is hypnotized. Please move away quickly. Please move away quickly. Allen woke up instantly, looked down, and was already standing at the edge of the path. One more step forward, and he would enter the swamp. He broke out in a cold sweat and quickly retreated, catching up with the team, not daring to look at the faces on the trees. You have a good will. You can actually get rid of the hypnosis of the soul gathering tree. Follow up well, and look left and right. If there is any problem, it's your own fault. The black-robed wizard in front glanced at Allen, who caught up and said lightly. After that, he did not stop, and continued to lead the way. Soon the road came to the end, which was a high wall with two stone statues with winged lion heads on both sides. The statues were carved from obsidian, and their eyes were black gems. No matter which direction you stood, it seemed like a pair of eyes staring at you, looking lifelike. Suddenly, a dim light flashed, and the statues actually moved, and a fierce breath rushed to your face. "Come on," said a monster on the left. "Okay. Skeffen, open the door. I don't have time to mess with you." Kane looked impatient. "Kane, although we know you, this is the rule. If you have any opinions, you should report to the highest tower master, but now you need to say the slogan," the lion-faced monster said with a smile. "Or are you ready to train with us? Then hurry up. I haven't been active for a long time, and I feel my body is rusty." Lion-face looked at Kane with a smile. "Okay, I'll tell you." Kane looked reluctant. "Damn it, which bastard made the password? Don't let me know, otherwise I will definitely teach them a lesson. Hurry up, I'm getting impatient, or I'll choose for you." Lionface was eager to try. "Password, orcs will never be slaves." Kane said the password with a constipated look. Allen's face was tense, his intestines were about to be knotted, and his whole body was trembling. It took a lot of effort to suppress it. Who came up with such a second-rate password? The password is correct. After saying that, he jumped back onto the pillar. Kane looked back, and everyone suddenly felt cold all over, and quickly adjusted their mentality, and lowered their heads. Then a door cracked in the wall, and the apprentices walked into the door with curiosity and awe. Kane walked in front and said, "The academy is divided into several areas, including living area, teaching area, experimental area, botanical garden area, trading area, mission area, practice area. production area and so on. Someone will take you to the specific locations later. Now follow me to do the first thing. Go to the Dean of Academic Affairs, register for school, and then assign a tutor. They walked all the way to the foot of the wizard tower. The tower looked majestic, but it exuded a cold breath. Pointing at the tower, he said, "This is the academic office. If you violate the school discipline in the future, this will be your nightmare. Believe me, you will find that death is not the most terrible thing." Then he said something in another language, and then the steel door opened directly. Chapter 13 Academy. Entering the Mage Tower, the environment inside is completely different. It is like a nobleman's study, luxuriously decorated but not vulgar. A short man sat behind a large desk, reading a magic book. Allen did not recognize the font on the cover of the book. On the desk, a quill pen stood up out of thin air, constantly writing something. After noticing Kane coming in, he just looked up, then continued to look at the book in his hand, and asked casually, "Is this the new blood this year?" "Yes, sir." "Any good news?" "This time there is a genius with 5th level qualifications. It seems that you are lucky. I will grant you an extra reward." The old man's eyes lit up when he heard that there was a 5th level qualification and promised, "Jerry, come here." Kane shouted to a teenager not far away. The teenager walked over quickly. "Director, I want to use priority. I'm going to accept him as a disciple." Kane said respectfully, "Jerry, are you willing to become Kane Wizard's disciple?" the old man asked, after taking a look. "I do." The teenager nodded and agreed without hesitation. The old man nodded, wrote quickly on the parchment with a quill pen, and took out a package, and handed it to him. Kane then left with Jerry. "Okay, it's your turn next. Do you have any tokens from the wizards in the academy? If so, take them out. Now we have to assign mentors." The old man knocked on the table and said. A man and a woman walked out of the crowd. One took out a lucky clovering, and the other took out a ruby necklace. The old man took it, and checked it and said, "Very good, it's the certificate of our academy. You can wait there for a while. A wizard will come to pick you up in a while." He pointed to a stool not far away. Then he said to the remaining apprentices again, "Don't worry if you don't have the certificate. You have already paid the tuition, and signed the contract. You are now apprentices of our academy. Although there is no mentor to accept you as a disciple, you will get the treatment you deserve. Each person will get a package, which contains a set of wizard robes, a staff, a course schedule and a basic meditation method, an identity card, as well as your room number and key." He threw the black package to the first apprentice, and snapped his right fingers. A little man more than a foot tall appeared in the air. The little man had a pair of wings, but his skin was blue and his head was in the shape of an inverted water drop, which looked very strange. "Follow this little elf, he will take you to the dormitory." After saying that, he ignored him. Next, the second apprentice hurried forward. The same package also had a little elf appearing, asking the apprentice to follow. Soon it was Allen's turn. He received a black package, and followed the blue elf. The little guy also left the wizard tower. He opened the package, and found the room card and key. It said D District 305. The elf took Allen to the dormitory area. The dormitory was an ancient castle. There was a sign at the door saying D Area Dormitory. The room was on the 3rd floor. The light in the corridor was dim, but as you walked in, the corridor would automatically light up. These wizards didn't know what principle they used to make this voice-controlled sensor light. The Five Rings Tower is said to be an organization that is friendly to apprentices even among white wizards. At least it doesn't require apprentices to sign a clause, to cooperate with their mentors, to accept human body transformation experiments every year. Many human body transformations are irreversible, and many people die from physical collapse. The corridor was not long, and they soon arrived at room 305. The elf bowed, then flashed and disappeared. Allen opened the door. The room was not big, and had not been lived in for a long time. There was a musty smell in it. The furnishings in the room were simple, with only a table, a bed, and a bathroom next to it. Open the doors and windows, then put down the luggage, take out the tools and start cleaning. After a while, seniors from previous years will come to take a group of newcomers to familiarize themselves with the environment, so you have to move quickly. Just after I finished cleaning, I heard someone shouting in the corridor, "New students, come out and gather downstairs." Allen quickly put down his tools and walked downstairs with his identity badge. There were several apprentices standing on the lawn in front of the dormitory castle, and Allen walked in directly. "I will only take you around once. I hope you will remember each place carefully. Remember, don't go into the prohibited areas. If there are any consequences, you will bear them yourself, but I believe you will definitely not be able to bear them," a tall and thin man standing in front said. Then a list was handed out to everyone. This was a rough map of the academy, which also marked the prohibited areas, as well as the school's rules and courses. "Okay, I'll take you to the teaching area first. Follow me. If you get lost, I won't look for you. You can only take care of yourself." After saying that, he walked out. This is the teaching area. Your classroom is in the second building. There will be free open classes every week in the first year. No magic stones are required, but the instructor will not answer your questions. Please remember this. You can also sign up for paid courses, but I suggest that you finish the free courses in the first 3 months before considering paid courses. This is the trading area. You can set up stalls here and exchange things. This place is protected by the academy and no one dares to make trouble here. However, you need to pay a venue fee. This is the library. Your nameplate is your authority card. Newcomers can only read books on the first floor for free. If you want to go to the second floor, you need to pay magic stones. You need gold coins to live in the school. This kind of wizard gold coin is melted from very high purity gold. Gold coins from other regions are not accepted, but they can be exchanged here. Under normal circumstances, 1 wizard gold coin requires 3 to 5 ordinary gold coins to be exchanged. He pointed to a room and said, with a look of pain on his face, "This is the mission area. You will be rewarded with gold coins or magic stones for completing the mission. Some of them can even give you rare knowledge. Knowledge here needs to be exchanged for magic stones, which is extremely precious." In the mission area, a tall blackboard was erected in the middle, with words written in magic, which looked different in color. This is the restaurant. To be honest, I think this is the best place in the 5 Rings Tower. The food here is simply delicious. You will definitely like it. The first floor is the ordinary area, and the second floor is the VIP area. The food in the VIP area is not simple. It is cooked with magic ingredients. It can improve your physical fitness, but the cost is absolutely terrible. Everyone standing outside the restaurant can smell the rich fragrance. It seems that the food here is good. This is the training ground. Anyone who wants to experiment with magic can come here. As long as you pay money, you can practice magic in it. However, the highest here can only withstand the spells of the power of formal wizards, but it is more than enough for you rookies. The tall and thin wizard apprentice led everyone around the school and finally returned to the dormitory castle. "Okay, my mission is completed. The class will start at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I hope you won't be late." After saying that, he left directly. Chapter 14 Meditation. The next morning, everyone came to the classroom. At 8 o'clock, a wizard in his 30s came to the classroom. "You are all newcomers. If you want to become a wizard, you need to complete the first step, meditation. Today I will teach you how to meditate. Chip, record images and text, and create a file." Ding. The task has been established. The wizard explained all the issues that need to be paid attention to in meditation, and then began to talk about the process of meditation. Allen listened very seriously. When you don't understand this subject, don't question that it is unscientific. He himself is the biggest unscientific, so Allen carefully recorded the method of meditation. Soon this class passed. Today there is only this basic course, so after learning, Allen returned to the dormitory to try meditation. This elementary meditation method is not complicated. There are a total of 16 runes. You need to use mental power to outline the runes in your mind. If you can meditate out 4 runes at a time, you will be a first level wizard apprentice. When all 12 runes are meditated out, you will reach the 3rd level wizard apprentice. When all 16 runes are meditated out, you will reach the peak of the 3rd level apprentice. The speed of rune meditation depends on each person's qualifications. Level 5 qualifications have too much advantage in the apprentice stage. It only takes a few days to enter the first level apprenticeship, while level 3 qualifications take a month to enter the first level apprenticeship. The gap between level 2 and level 3 will continue to widen. Chip. Scan the primary meditation method and optimize and deduce at the same time. Ding. The task has been established and the primary meditation method has begun to be analyzed. The analysis time required is 137 minutes. Optimization, unknown. Deduction, unknown. Looking at the time displayed above, Allen thought he should go to the library to check the information first. After all, there are too many things he doesn't know in this world. He went to the restaurant to eat first, then packed a copy to take away, and went directly to the library. He registered with the nameplate and entered. The first floor of the library was 4 meters high and filled with bookshelves. Each bookshelf was 3.5 meters high, and there were dozens of bookshelves in a row. There were many books. Allen began to look through the books bit by bit, but no one sorted these books, and the classification of various books was messy. Allen took out a book and started to check. The books were all made of parchment. Although they looked very thick, there was not much content. Soon a book was finished. Most of these books had nothing to do with wizards. The most common books were continental history, world geography, and dynastic evolution. There were also many travel notes of bards. However, Allen did not give up. There were still many useful books on the first floor, such as Encyclopedia of Magical Creatures, Encyclopedia of Magical Plants, Model Construction, etc. As he flipped through the books, time passed quickly. Seeing that it was getting dark, Allen returned to the dormitory with food. At this time, the elementary meditation method had been analyzed. After dinner, Allen began to prepare for practice. Chip. Start transmitting the first rune. Or three-dimensional image of the rune began to emerge in his mind, with very complex patterns on it. If there was no chip to assist, it would take at least a few days to complete it, if he studied by himself. After the rune was transmitted, Allen fully understood the composition of the rune. Start meditation. First, concentrate and empty your mind. The dormitory was quiet at night. Allen sat quietly in the small room. Except for the rise and fall of his chest when he breathed, he felt like a statue. Time passed by minute, and dots of light began to appear around the boy, and then disappeared from the boy little by little. The young man had no expression. After a long time, Allen could no longer maintain his body shape. He collapsed suddenly, and his chest was panting rapidly like a bellows. I'm so tired. This meditation method is too mentally exhausting. It's exhausted in just such a short time of practice. Ding. Host, please pay attention. There is slight radiation on the subject. Chip. Scan my physical fitness. Ding. The subject's brain cells are abnormally active, and the physical fitness has been slightly strengthened. The brain is tired and needs to rest. It seems that this meditation method not only increases mental strength, but also strengthens physical fitness. This meditation method should be the same as the knight's breathing method. It can transform the life body and evolve to a higher level of life form, but the wizard's system is much more perfect than that of the knight. The upper limit is also far exceeded. Who chip? Quantify the subject's mental power. Ding. Quantification is successful. The subject's mental power is 2.1. After doing all this, Allen felt sleepy. This is because the meditation method has reached its limit. At this time, a good sleep is needed to recover. No longer considering other things, Allen set the time, stopped resisting, and fell asleep quickly when lying on the bed. The next morning, Chip woke Allen up and stretched lazily. Today we are talking about linguistics. The popular common language in the wizarding world is Byron. The spells needed for casting spells are Nessa, and the language used for rune magic circles is Elvish. So every qualified wizard must be proficient in these three basic languages. There are also Sith and Naru. Today's free course is linguistics, which is a very important subject, but it is not easy to master. The academy teaches the three most basic languages for free, and other languages such as ancient magic rune language and high elven language require payment. As the lecture officially began, the apprentices present were shocked. Their expressions became serious, and they began to listen attentively. A few hours passed quickly. When the lecture was over, the instructor left in a hurry without giving the apprentices around him time to ask questions. Alas, I didn't understand more than half of it. Several apprentices around sighed with disappointment. These are free courses. As long as the course is completed, the task is completed. As for explaining the questions, it depends on the mood of the instructor. Many of these instructors are part-time third-level apprentices. Many of these people are busy accumulating resources to advance to formal wizards, so they will naturally not waste time. Alan, how much do you understand? Jason asked. About 70% or 80%. Alan put away his things expressionlessly and asked in his heart, Chip, have all the courses been recorded? Ding. It has been fully recorded and can be checked at any time. Establish a linguistics file for reference at any time. Ding. The file has been established. Coming to the library again. This time Alan is not going to check it bit by bit here, but to scan it into the chip first, and then transmit it to the brain after the chip is sorted, which can greatly improve efficiency. Then every night Alan will practice the primary meditation method, and squeeze his mental power to the extreme every time, and then go to rest. Entering many places in the academy requires money and magic stones. The money and magic stones that Alan brought have been exhausted. If you want to study in the academy, you need to spend time to find some part-time jobs to earn money. However, the tasks in the academy require at least the strength of a first-level apprentice. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Red Dragon Bloodline Essence. Time passed quickly. After a month, Alan finally meditated on the 4th rune and successfully entered the 1st level wizard apprentice. He was much worse than those with the 5th level qualifications, but not much slower than those with the 4th level qualifications. Deep in his mind, in the state of meditation, spiritual runes began to condense one by one, and dots of purple light bloomed in the dark and deep space. Finally, the 4th spiritual rune was condensed. The surrounding spiritual light began to flow into his body. Alan slowly opened his eyes, and the fatigue flashed away. After advancing to the 1st level apprentice, Alan felt that the world was clearer, and at the same time, he felt the abundant elemental particles around him. These things could not be scanned by chips before, and they could only be felt by chips after they were promoted. The element closest to him was the fire element. A 1st level wizard apprentice can learn a secondary spell, but although the secondary spell is simple, the spell model needs to be purchased with magic stones, so he can only learn it after he has money. At this time, Alan took out the crystal bottle he got when he first came to this world. This crystal bottle was the last item he carried with the Zeushan crossing system. The others were lost in the turbulence of time and space and disappeared. At that time, because it was discovered by others, he just hid it and never looked at it carefully. Now that he has become a 1st level wizard apprentice, he used the chip to scan the surroundings without any spells or other things, and then carefully took it out. A crystal bottle of about 100 milliliters in size, filled with a bright red liquid. Because the special crystal bottle isolates all the breath, it is impossible to tell what it is. Chip, what is this? Do you have a record? Ding. The main body is in the Red Dragon Blood Essence. Hearing this name, Alan's hand trembled and almost dropped the bottle of Red Dragon Blood Essence. What? Are you saying it again? The main body is the Red Dragon Blood Essence. Alan jumped up instantly and just about to laugh out loud. He seemed to remember something and stopped abruptly. Red Dragon Blood Essence. It's actually this kind of thing. So what level 5 qualification is? It's nothing in front of it. What did I say? Level 3 qualification. Is this the treatment of the protagonist? So the treatment of the protagonist is here. There is a special branch among wizards called warlocks. This kind of people is also called blood warlocks or blood wizards. They are much stronger than wizards of the same level, and in many cases, they don't value qualifications, but blood concentration. The advancement of blood wizards is the continuous tempering, or continuous evolution of their blood. For example, if they have the blood of a higher creature such as the Crowder Python, because their blood level is the same as that of a level 3 wizard, they will become a higher level wizard apprentice when their blood awakens for the first time. Then as the blood awakens continuously, it will continue to upgrade. As long as there is no interruption, it will naturally reach the level 2 wizard. If you are lucky enough, you can even reach the level 3. Not only is the body strong, but there are also several kinds of innate witchcraft, but some are lost. Although there is a gifted witchcraft, it has no advantage in learning other witchcraft, and still needs to learn little by little. But it is a very powerful profession anyway. But there is a disadvantage, that as the offspring multiply, the blood will continue to degenerate and become thinner until it becomes the same as that of ordinary people. In order to keep the blood from degenerating, it is necessary to re-inject the blood of the source or replace it with other blood. With the end of the ancient times, those powerful magical creatures became increasingly rare, and this is also the reason that led to the decline of blood wizards. In order to maintain the purity of the blood, these blood wizards began to marry close relatives. This is indeed a way to delay the attenuation of blood, but it can only delay it for some time, and it will eventually return to ordinary. Now many blood wizard families are no different from ordinary people. Without a strong blood source, they will naturally decline. But Allen does not need to worry. His bottle of red dragon blood essence is enough to transform it into a dragon wizard. You must know that the legendary magical creatures such as dragons will reach the legendary level when they grow up, and their intelligence is not inferior to that of humans, or even stronger. That is to say, as long as Allen waits for the power of his bloodline to mature, he will reach the legendary level. The legendary level is equivalent to the level of a 4th level great wizard. At present, the highest level in the wizard continent is only a 3rd level wizard, and a 4th level wizard has not appeared for 2000 years. The life of a 4th level wizard is several thousand years, or if he is sealed with a spell such as life hiding, his life consumption will be reduced to 1/5, but life hiding will directly enter a deep sleep and will not wake up before the scheduled time. Seeing this bottle of red dragon blood essence, Allen did not intend to keep it, and was ready to use it directly. After all, if this thing is leaked, it can cause a melee that affects the entire wizard continent. Just one bottle of blood can not only guarantee the promotion to legend, but even his offspring will have this bloodline. Although it is impossible to be as powerful as the first generation, it is more than enough to give birth to a 3rd level wizard. Take out the crystal bottle, which contains an injection tube. Push it gently, then pierce it into the arm, and the bright red blood essence slowly injects into the body. As soon as he entered, he felt hot all over, his blood flowed faster and faster, his heart beat faster and faster, and his blood vessels were prominent. Allen bit the bedsheet tightly, not daring to make any sound. This was the most critical moment. Once he was discovered, those skilled wizards would spend a lot of effort to forcibly extract the blood from his body again. Although some of it would be lost, the rest could still be used. Those wizards would not be merciful. As time passed, the blood flowed faster and faster, and all the blood began to transform. There was a hint of gold in the bright red blood, which was the sign of legendary blood. As the blood continued to pass through the heart, more and more blood began to be stained with gold. Finally, when all the blood was stained with gold, the blood transformation was considered to be initially completed. However, the blood was still not completely fused. Only after a period of time, the first blood transition occurred, and the blood was considered to be completely fused. The initially fused blood did not bring obvious effects. Because the legendary blood is very powerful, if you don't suppress its power, then slowly release it, and burst it out all at once, only those at the same level or higher than the red dragon can withstand that kind of impact, and others below this level will explode and die. However, although his physical fitness has not been greatly improved, Allen's physical fitness is twice as strong as when he just advanced, and even his elemental affinity and qualifications have been greatly improved. As the blood fusion continues to deepen, these things will continue to improve. Chapter 16 Mission. The boiling blood power gradually calmed down. At this time, Allen's blood contained huge blood power. These blood power will be gradually released in the future. Even from now on, Allen will no longer practice, just waiting for the blood to merge, and he will advance to a formal wizard. However, it will take a little longer. Allen has a feeling that as long as he continues to meditate, he will soon be promoted again. However, Allen has no such plan. It is too eye-catching to be promoted twice in such a short time. After packing up his things, Allen who has merged into his blood, is exhausted and soon falls asleep. Time passed slowly. In the next 2 months, Allen recorded all the free knowledge. Although he did not learn it all, it was only a matter of time with the help of the chip. Many other apprentices in the same period did not learn these courses at all, but the free courses would not be taught again. Allen found a way to make money. Although the price of free knowledge is not high, the income from opening a small classroom to teach more than a dozen apprentices at a time is also considerable. Spending 10 gold coins to listen to the course again is nothing for these apprentices of noble origin. Knowledge is money here, but this money can only be earned for a period of time. The basic courses are not difficult. After 3 months, all 3 basic courses have been taught. Next, they will choose subjects according to their future paths, and these subjects will require magic stones. Since becoming a first level wizard apprentice, the function of the chip has made great progress, and the speed of calculation has become faster. In order to earn magic stones, Allen is ready to accept the task. Today's course has been completed. If you don't understand anything, you can raise it. Each person can ask a question. Extra fees will be charged for more than the required amount. Allen said to more than 50 apprentices in a classroom. There are many empty classrooms in the teaching area here, and there are some wizard apprentices who charge money to teach knowledge in the surrounding classrooms. However, the price of free courses is very low and the time is still very long, so not many people teach. However, this is also the last class for Allen. During this period, he has earned thousands of gold coins just by teaching these basic knowledge. After answering the questions, Allen hurriedly took his things and left the classroom. "Allen, are you going to the mission area?" Thin apprentice asked. "Yes, are you going to, Albert?" Albert also came from the Flynn Islands, so they are close in the academy. Albert's talent is also level 3, but he has one thing in common. He is well informed. "I guess you must want to earn magic stones." Albert stroked the large glasses on his nose. "Nonsense." Allen rolled his eyes and continued to move forward. "Don't you want to listen to my opinion?" Albert saw that Allen ignored him and hurriedly chased after him. "I'll be surprised if you can hold back," Allen complained expressionlessly. "I swear, if you don't come to beg me this time, I will never tell you." Albert suddenly felt insulted and swore angrily. Haha. The two continued to move forward. "I can't help it, Allen." During this period, there are wizard families in the academy for marriage. After enduring for more than 10 minutes, Albert finally couldn't help but speak. "Marriage? What does this have to do with us?" Allen asked in confusion. "Haha, you finally asked me." Albert laughed proudly. Allen rolled his eyes and ignored him. "Hey, don't leave." He quickly chased after him. These wizard families are actually families that rely on the academy. They come here to marry excellent wizard apprentices. "I don't plan to get married." Allen refused directly. "I'm the blood of the red dragon. You want to marry me? You must be eyeing my bloodline. I can see through your honey trap at a glance." "Humph. If you are selected, you will be given 100 magic stones for funding, and there will be 10 magic stones every year in the future," Albert said leisurely. Allen, who was walking in front, paused and then continued to move forward. "Do they have any requirements?" Allen pretended to be nonchalant. "Of course, the higher the probability of breaking through to the real wizard, the better. They want descendants with wizard qualifications. Of course, real wizards are better, but formal wizards don't look down on this," Albert said enviously. "When wizards and wizards combine, the probability of their children having wizard qualifications is higher. This is the idea of these wizard families. If they marry with other wizard families, the children born will be difficult to distribute. Many of the wizard apprentices recruited in these academies are ordinary nobles. After marriage, they can only become the strength of the wizard family. No matter how you calculate it, you will not lose. Even if you don't advance to become a wizard, you will always have good qualifications if you have more children. The probability of ordinary people giving birth to wizard qualifications is too low. If these wizard families do not add new blood, they may decline in a few hundred years. However, even so, the geniuses who are married in may become the host. So it depends on the operation level of the wizard family. After understanding it, Allen has completely denied this path. This is to make him a reproductive machine. It's not worth it. When the two passed by the restaurant, a blind date from another world was being held there. However, the blind date was not for young men and women, but a row of wizard apprentices queuing up to bring information to those wizard families for inspection. If they passed, they would go further. It seems that there are many people who want to take this step. After all, wizards need resources to advance, and the chances of having a family support in the early stage are higher. After a few glances, the two came to the task area. A huge crystal board was hung in the hall, with tasks written in magic words on it. Various tasks were hung on the crystal board. Most of the tasks without prefixes were posted by private individuals. As for the tasks with prefixes, they were posted by the official organization of the Five Rings Tower. Ordinary tasks were in white and yellow, and important and urgent ones were in red. Apprentice level tasks were all outside, and the difficulty was higher when they were closer to the inside. The highest reward was to purchase spell models, but this thing was not common. Next was all kinds of knowledge, and the prices were different. Allen did not look down directly. The most tasks were to purchase various materials, but many of these things required going to some dangerous areas. That was the territory of Warcraft. Without strong means, the mortality rate was not low. It was too dangerous to go there without the ability to protect yourself. Simple tasks like cleaning have been replaced by witchcraft puppets. The rest include planting various magical herbs and plants, and cultivating magic beasts, but they all require skills to receive them. If something goes wrong, a large amount of magic stones must be compensated, and Allen does not have that knowledge yet. As for those who cooperate with the experiment, they are betting their lives. The minimum requirement for the patrol team is to be an intermediate apprentice. Not only is it safe, but the magic stone rewards are also quite a lot, but you can't get it without connections. After searching around, I only found a library that needs to find an administrator, 1 magic stone per month, and no additional requirements. As for Albert, although this kid has a big mouth, he is talented. He can actually do some simple communication with animals. This is the power passed down from their bloodline, so he directly received the cultivation of magic beasts. Chapter 17 Librarian. Librarian is a mysterious profession in the universe. This profession is usually just a cover-up. There are many famous bigwigs who are librarians. I won't list them one by one here. If I say their names, it will attract their attention. That's no joke. Allen is also a newly minted librarian. Because the first floor is a free area, there is no actual administrator. The second floor is a paid area, and Allen is the librarian on the second floor. Another advantage of being an administrator is that you can borrow books every day, as long as you don't take them out. If the librarian didn't need to stay here all day, this would be a good profession. This is good news for Allen. He can record all the books in the library without spending magic stones. With the help of the chip, Allen began to absorb the knowledge inside eagerly. The second floor of the library is much smaller than the first floor. All the books in it are related to wizards. There are wizard apprentices' practice notes, travel notes, and materials on various subjects. Although it is not big, there are still thousands of books. However, Allen searched around and did not find a spell model. It seems that the academy has collected all the spell models that can be purchased only with magic stones. Although there are no fractional models, all kinds of basic knowledge and some advanced knowledge are available here. Alchemy beginners, model construction, negative energy, potion beginners and many other books were recorded by the chip and then transmitted to the brain after analysis. Allen saw that his theoretical knowledge was completed in a short time. Fire element beginners, I want to borrow it, register it. Allen raised his head, took the nameplate and the book, operated on a crystal ball, and handed it to the intermediate apprentice. 1 magic stone is only allowed to be borrowed for 3 days. After that, 1 magic stone will be charged for each day. If it is damaged or lost, compensation will be paid according to the price. Allen finished his work skillfully and continued to read. Every day, a large number of people came to borrow books. This day, Allen finished reading anatomy and stood up to return the book. Next to the bookshelf, he saw a beautiful girl wearing a black and grey apprentice wizard robe. Her hair was a striking red, her facial features were delicate, and she was 1.7 meters tall. Her ears were different from those of ordinary people. They were a bit like the pointed ears of elves, and her bright eyes were like emeralds. She was constantly looking for books, and the surrounding bookshelves were turned into a mess. Allen said unhappily, "Hey, don't look for it. You are looking for such a mess. I will sort it out later. What book are you looking for? Just tell me. I have written down the location of every book." The girl stopped her action and looked at Allen, who was pretending to be a master, and then said, "Really? You know every book?" "Of course, I'm a librarian. As long as it is a book in the library, there is nothing I don't know." Allen waved his hand casually and said, "Well, help me find a book, but I forgot the full name of the book." The girl looked at Allen and said, "It's okay, you can say any 2 words. With my memory, I can know where it is. That, I just remember the 2 words Chuji." Allen wanted to say MMP in his heart. "Girl, you are here to mess up the place," Allen said to the chip expressionlessly. "Chip, search all books with the word Chuji in the library." Ding. The task has been established. Search for books with the word Chuji in the library. Ding. The search has been completed. There are 87 books with the word Chuji in the library. The catalog list. After looking at the catalog listed by the chip, Allen regained his confidence. "Humph, I wonder if it's not easy for me." Allen, the Pirate King. The first explanation of fire element. The first explanation of magic potions. The first explanation of alchemy. The first explanation of on the ancient Byron language and the development of wizards. Which one do you need to find? Allen said all the dozens of books with the word Chuji expressionlessly. Seeing this half-elf lady with her mouth wide open and a face full of smugness, I felt relieved all of a sudden. You. The lady pointed at Allen with an unacceptable look on her face. "Am I handsome?" Allen posed and shook his flowing hair and said, "I'm looking for Bloodline Wizard Beginning." Seeing Allen's smug look, Payne returned to his expressionless face and said in a firm tone, "The Bloodline Wizard Beginning is on the 3rd bookshelf in Area D, on the 1st floor. Go and look for it." Seeing the girl's indifferent face, Allen touched his nose, told her the location of the book, and left. Returning to his seat, Allen quickly put the matter behind him, opened the book he had just received and continued to study. "Help me register," a familiar voice came. Allen looked up and saw that it was the half-elf girl just now. Reaching out to take the book and identity card, registering them on the crystal ball, and handed them to her. "My name is Payne. What's your name?" The girl did not leave, but looked at Allen with interest. "My name is Allen, librarian. Thank you for today. How about I treat you to a meal?" The girl is very interested in Allen now. After all, he can remember all the books in the library. This kind of talent of photographic memory is very remarkable. As far as she knows, there have been 3 wizards with this talent in the history of the academy, and they all achieved great success in the end. Allen in front of him is the 4th one, and it is very likely that he will become a new strong man in the future. No, it's just a piece of cake. No need to thank me. I still have to read books. Allen directly rejected the invitation. Although this half-elf girl is very beautiful, beauty is not his own. The knowledge in the book is yours after you learn it, and beauty is still someone else's when you read it, so just read the book honestly. I love to learn. Seeing Allen's refusal, Payne's mouth twitched, and he spent a lot of effort to stabilize his aura, picked up the book, and turned to leave the library. Allen is a person who can stand loneliness. In the next few months, he almost spent all his time in the library. The apprentices of the same period as him basically started to study their own courses. After learning the basic knowledge, they will study according to their needs or talents and sign up for paid courses. After all, their energy is limited, and the tuition fees for paid courses are not a small amount. Although one magic stone can be studied for 5 hours, it often takes 3 to 7 hours to explain a secondary spell in detail. Even if you don't sign up for other subjects, you have to learn courses such as spell analysis, model construction, and elementary meditation method analysis. Allen can see all these contents in the library. As long as they are analyzed by the chip and retransmitted to the brain, he can quickly learn all these knowledge. So although he didn't go to class, Allen's knowledge reserves did not decrease at all. And those who know that Allen came to be a librarian are not surprised. The Five Rings Tower is divided into 2 types of wizards. One is the combat wizard. These wizards are powerful and often go out to fight, and fight with black wizards. The other is the academic school, specializing in logistics, potion refining, magic weapon making, scroll making, etc. It's just a different division of labor. Chapter 18 Spell Templates. Allen also found some historical data on wizards in the library. The data was vague, but it mentioned that wizards were not the natives of this world, but came here 12,000 years ago. As for how they came, it was not detailed. As for where they came from, it only said that they were expelled by others. There are 13 volumes of books in total, written in ancient Nessa language. Allen couldn't figure out the meaning of many words on it, and he got the answer through chip analysis and comparison. Allen also found this book accidentally. Fortunately, all the books in the library were fixed by spells, and every librarian would regularly maintain them. These books have been stored in the Five Rings Tower for at least 5,000 years. Allen scanned the signature on the book with a chip, and then looked for this person's information in the library. Unexpectedly, he found that he was a master of the highest tower in the early days of the academy, that is, a dean of the Five Rings Tower. He died 5,000 years ago. It records some wizard organizations and some history of the wizard continent at that time. Some of them look like travel notes, but there should be more than that. It may be lost or damaged over time, or it may be put away. However, there are still a few ancient continental maps on it. Allen scanned them with a chip and compared them with the current map. He found that there was not much difference, but the marks of some wizard organizations on it had changed a lot. It seems that many wizard organizations have declined in the past thousands of years, and some have risen. In a blink of an eye, more than half a year has passed since entering the academy. Allen has been away from home for nearly 2 years. I'm 15 years old too. Allen looked at his slightly enlarged palm and suddenly felt more emotional. The Five Rings Tower Academy is covered with a constant temperature wizard array, so the apprentices here wear apprentice robes all year round. After so much time, Allen's mental power has also been slowly improving. Now he has reached the second level wizard apprentice. Only the apprentice with level 5 qualifications in the same period as him has reached the second level apprentice. He has accumulated a lot of magic stones in his hands. Allen is going to select a few secondary spell models and prepare to study spells. The Tower of Wisdom of the Academy sells witchcraft templates. It is a 3-story spire with a dark brown appearance and looks like it has experienced a long period of wind and rain. There are not many people here usually. The path paved with warm cobblestones is very comfortable to walk on. Walking into the hall is very spacious. There are a few scattered wizard apprentices here. There is only one counter in the hall. Behind it is an old man sleeping with his eyes squinting. Allen came to the counter. He gently knocked on the table with his fingers. Dong dong dong. Good afternoon, sir. The wizard slowly opened his eyes after hearing the sound, took off the crystal eyes on the bridge of his nose, wiped them with a piece of cloth, and said slowly, "Young people nowadays don't know how to respect the elderly. Are you here to buy spell models?" "Yes, sir," Allen said expressionlessly. "Okay, little guy who disturbs my sleep, do you need those spell models?" The old man who put on his glasses again raised his head and looked at Allen and said, "I want to exchange for the secondary spells of Wizard's Hand, Grease Spell, and Flame Bead." Allen had already chosen the secondary spell and said it directly. The Wizard's Hand requires 4 magic stones. Grease, Flame Bead, each requires 3 magic stones. After saying that, he stood up, took 3 crystal balls from the counter behind him, and put them on the table. Then he motioned for Allen to check. Allen didn't hesitate, reached out and picked up a crystal ball, then closed his eyes and began to use his mental power to check. Inside was a spell model, but more than half of it was blocked. He tried to scan it with a chip, but found that he couldn't penetrate it without destroying the crystal ball, so he had to give up honestly. He put down this crystal ball and then picked up the other 2, and the result was the same. After putting down the crystal ball, "Any questions?" the old man asked. "No problem. A total of 10 magic stones, right?" Allen confirmed again, and when he saw the old man nod, he took out 10 green magic stones the size of pigeon eggs from his pocket and put them on the table. After buying these spell models, Allen's wealth was directly reduced by half. There are thousands of Kindler, and the ratio of exchanging Kindler for magic stones is 120:1, and there is no market for them. The old man put away the magic stone and took out the magic wand. The magic wand flashed with light and shot out 3 rays of light, which sank into the crystal ball. Okay, the protection measures have been lifted. You can check and study. This is a contract. Sign it and you can leave. The old man took out a piece of parchment and handed it to Allen. Allen took it and checked it. He found that it was a confidentiality agreement. The spell models purchased here can only be used by oneself and cannot be sold to others. However, the spell models that have been improved by oneself are not an exception. This is a low-level contract. If it is violated, it will also be backfired by the contract. After checking that there are no loopholes, Allen signed his name very readily, then picked up the 3 tennis-sized crystal balls, put them in his pocket, and left the Tower of Wisdom. The witchcraft templates sold here are the most basic, without any improvement, and the power is mediocre without any advantages. The crystal ball is made of a unique memory crystal, which can store information in a special way. This is a common method used by wizards. The safety device inside is to prevent someone from peeking. If you use brute force to check it, the crystal will be damaged, and the information inside will be directly destroyed, and cannot be viewed. The key is the old man's magic wand, which can be used to unlock the insurance. These things are mass-produced. They are not only sold in the academy, but also sold in the wizard secret meeting, or the black market. After all, selling one is selling. Selling 100 is also selling. The cost is only 1 piece of memory crystal, which can be sold. This is a good way to make money. After all, signing a contract can protect copyright to the greatest extent. It can be said that intellectual property patents in this world are the most profitable way. If those pirates in the previous life were here, they would be directly destroyed by wizards. The only advantage of the basic template is that it is simple and easy to learn. After Allen used his mental power to contact it, there was no obstruction this time. He easily checked the complete witchcraft model. As the mental power contacted, the huge information flow flowed directly into Allen's mind. Allen directly let the chip receive the template. The information flow at that moment made Allen's brain swell. It took some time to transfer all 3 templates to the chip. Start analyzing the witchcraft models of the wizard's hand, grease spell, and flame bead. Ding. The task has been established, and the analysis has begun. It is estimated to take 103 minutes. After throwing the witchcraft model to the chip, Allen returned to the dormitory, because all the books in the library had been scanned and analyzed by Allen, removing the duplicate and useless information in them. The chip then compared various information, modified and improved the contradictory and wrong information, and then transmitted it to the brain. Allen is now a top student, but there is no higher knowledge library. Formal wizards will not put their knowledge in the library for anyone to read, so if you want to get it, you need to spend a lot of money to buy it, or trade the same knowledge. Wizards are also very stingy with spell templates. Wizard apprentices are divided into 3 levels. In fact, before becoming a formal wizard, the gap is not that big. The spells used by wizard apprentices are all secondary spells. There are very few spell templates above level 1 in the Tower of Wisdom, and the price is also shocking. In addition, you must sign a closer contract with the academy to get them. These witchcraft templates are the application of wizard's knowledge, and are also one of the most precious assets of every wizard. However, Allen is not worried, because as a warlock, he will awaken his innate witchcraft when his bloodline undergoes a transition. This innate spell is inherited through the bloodline, and he will learn it directly. When the bloodline transitions, Allen will directly advance to a formal wizard. Other spells will be inherited in the bloodline, but these need to be learned by yourself. The strength of the bloodline will affect the amount of inheritance. The richer the bloodline, the more it will be inherited. The thinner the bloodline, the less likely it will be. The level of the bloodline will also affect the amount and level of inheritance. Just like the highest level of the 4th level legendary bloodline will inherit a legendary spell, while the 3rd level will only have a 3rd level spell. Chapter 19 Optimization. Ding. The analysis of Wizard's Hand, Grease, and Flame Orb is complete. Do you want to optimize? How long will the optimization take? It will take an estimated 27 hours. Then optimize. After more than a year of library life, Allen has read all the books in the library and has enough theoretical knowledge. He needs to turn knowledge into strength, which requires a job that can earn magic stones faster. The most profitable job is undoubtedly the pharmacist, who refines various potions in exchange for resources. However, it is not an easy thing to become a pharmacist. First of all, this requires talent, but for Allen, who has the assistance of a chip, this is not the most difficult thing. The most difficult thing is the potion formula. Without the potion formula, it takes a lot of effort to configure the potion by yourself. During this period, it not only takes a lot of resources and time, but it is also more likely to fail, and the initial investment will go down the drain. Therefore, each potion formula is extremely precious. At the same time, you need to be proficient in refining potions, and the success rate must meet the standard. Otherwise you will not only fail to make money, but also lose money. The college has opened a basic pharmacy course, but it only contains basic knowledge, and the potion formulas are only secondary healing potions, secondary mana potions, and secondary meditation potions. Allen has already learned all this knowledge in the library. If he wants to go further, he needs to sign up and pass the pharmacist's assessment. After passing the assessment, he will sign a contract. The college will provide various materials and resources needed for learning. After completing the college's tasks every once in a while, he will be free after a certain number of years. However, he cannot get more advanced formulas in this way. If he wants to get them, he needs to sign a new contract. In short, it costs a lot. Allen doesn't want to be tied down by the college, so he didn't choose this path. After thinking about it, he can only start from the lowest potion, the secondary healing potion. The magic potion shop in the college's trading area is purchasing potion raw materials, because many raw materials need to be processed before they can be used, and pharmacists don't have time to do these jobs, so they will recruit apprentices to process them. First rely on these to earn magic stones. As for those potion formulas, there will always be a way. In the early morning, there was a faint light on the horizon, and the mist in the sky had not dissipated yet. The faint light shone into the room through the mist, and Allen opened his eyes. He stretched hard. Chip. Is the task completed? Ding. Wizard's hand has been optimized. Send it over. Instantly, a series of data began to be transmitted into Allen's mind, and it ended after a while. Rubbing his swollen forehead, Allen began to observe. The spell of Wizard's hand is to form a palm through mental power, which can manipulate this palm to work. The spell cast by the dean when I first entered school is a variant of Wizard's hand. It can work like a palm, but the flexibility depends on the spell model. It can also be used as an attack method, but the power is not high. But the auxiliary effect is very useful. Allen checked it out. This Wizard's hand is very flexible. If the flexibility of the basic model at the beginning is 1, the flexibility of the Wizard's hand now is 32, which is dozens of times higher. But the model above is also much more complicated, and it is not easy to construct. The process of constructing a spell template is very similar to meditation. You need to outline complex templates in your mind and finally stabilize them. The spell template is equivalent to a pistol, and the various energy particles condensed into mana are bullets. As long as the gun is normal and stable, the magic bullet can be injected with mana to release the witchcraft. The different structures of the spell template and the different mana used can affect the final spell effect. When wizards use spells, they usually build the corresponding spell template in their minds and then release it. The faster the spell template condenses, the shorter the casting time. Allen checked the Wizard's hand completely and then started his first attempt. The room was very quiet, with only one figure sitting cross-legged. After an unknown period of time, the figure suddenly collapsed. There were waves of tearing pain in his mind, and the witchcraft template that was almost completed collapsed again. Allen covered his head with his hands, holding back the huge mental pain and fatigue, and sat on the ground gasping for breath. This was the 4th time to build the template, and without exception, it failed. At the beginning, it was unfamiliar, and there was a problem with mental control, which led to collapse. Later, he became more and more proficient. By the 4th time, he had completed 80%. After building it a few more times, Allen felt that he could complete the first spell. The raw material needed to construct a spell template is mental power. Whether it succeeds or fails, it will consume the wizard's spirit. Once the mental power is insufficient, the spell model will collapse directly. I have tried to construct it 4 times, and the mental power has been consumed a lot. The remaining is not enough to construct it again. It takes time to recover. Excessive consumption of mental power will affect the foundation and cause mental damage. Mental damage is a very serious injury, and it is not easy to heal. After his breathing stabilized, Allen relaxed his brain and began to breathe at a special frequency. This is a method in meditation. It can speed up the recovery of mental power. If combined with mental power recovery potions, the recovery speed will be faster. Or just taking a nap can also speed up recovery. Time passed quickly. After an hour, Allen's mental power had recovered to 80%. At this time, this method of recovery is very slow. Only complete relaxation and sleep can fully recover. But it is more than enough to construct the spell model. Rebuilding the model in his mind, this time Allen let the chip guide step by step, and the data was arranged in an orderly manner. With the demonstration of the chip, Allen's construction went more smoothly this time. He finished 80% without realizing it. He did not fail at the point where the problem occurred last time. Under the guidance of the chip, he quickly finished 85% and then continued to finish. He carefully used his mental power to outline the last node. The entire spell template took shape, and then a slight vibration came from his mind. The spell template was successful. Allen directly guided the mana to activate it. A unique feeling came over him, along with the activation of the spell template. At this moment, Allen felt the mana input in his body, and a palm appeared in his mind. This big hand could be as flexible as a human hand. He opened his eyes and a translucent palm appeared in the air. Allen controlled the palm to make various movements, such as picking up things and cleaning. However, he accidentally used too much force and crushed a vase. He needed more practice to control it well. The mental power consumed to maintain this big hand was not much. Allen controlled it for an hour before interrupting his mental power. He saw the big hand slowly collapse and disappear. Is this the power of a wizard? After the manipulation just now, Allen sighed in his heart. His auxiliary ability in secondary spells alone was amazing. Chapter 20 Testing. With the success of the first spell template, Allen continued to work hard in the next 2 days to learn the remaining 2 spell templates. The grease spell template was the simplest and took 2 times to build. This spell requires a small piece of spell material to cooperate with. It can be replaced with ordinary grease, or it can be released with magic grease prepared in advance. When released, a thin layer of grease will be spread on the ground. It is very smooth, and it is difficult to stand even with defense. Magic grease is made of ordinary grease. Only a solid piece the size of a little fingernail is needed to spread an area of 20 square meters on the ground. The flame bead is more difficult than the grease spell template. Allen spent 4 times to finally condense the template. If you want to test the power, you have to go to the training ground. Now that you have learned it, you must practice more. After leaving the dormitory, Allen walked towards the test field. The spell test field was located on the left side of the academy. The surrounding area was completely made of obsidian. The magic resistance was very high and the physical defense was also good. There were various solidified runes on the wall. Allen's long time of reading in the library had enriched his knowledge. The runes engraved on it included solidity, magic resistance, purification of pollution, advanced restoration, and some that Allen did not recognize. Do you want to test spells? Allen came to the front desk and a 3rd level wizard apprentice said with a smile. Of course. How much is it here? We have 2 large areas here, the apprentice area and the wizard area. You can go to the apprentice area. Each room is charged according to the size of the area. Now there are 3 levels, large, medium and small. The large room is 100 square meters, the medium room is 70 square meters, and the small room is only 50 square meters. How much is a large room? Hearing that Allen was going to have a large room, the wizard apprentice's eyes lit up. 1 magic stone for 2 hours. There is a special testing device in the room to determine the power of your spell. I need 1. Allen thought for a while and took out a magic stone and handed it to the man. Okay, this is the token. I'll register it for you. The wizard apprentice took out a token and quickly recorded it in the notebook. Please follow me. After saying that, the wizard apprentice led the way in front, and Allen followed closely and came to a stone door inside. "This is it." As he said that, the token in his hand flashed, and the stone door slowly opened. Inside was an empty room, with several human-shaped targets on the other side, and nothing else. Allen walked in, and checked it out, and nodded with satisfaction. "Very good, I'm very satisfied. This is a token. You can control the facilities inside. You can also use this to open and close the door. You can use your mental power to sense it, and you will know how to use it." After saying that, he handed the token to Allen, and then retreated directly. After taking the token, he looked at it, and closed the door directly. There were several targets in the middle of the venue. Allen first took out the cross sword, and chopped it with all his strength. He saw that this target, which didn't look very strong, didn't cause much damage, and only left a 1-inch deep sword mark. Physical damage, power 3 degree damage, very low. A mechanical voice sounded. "The knight's full strength attack without using secret skills only cause 3rd degree of damage, so let's try the spell damage." Allen nodded after reading it. Putting away the cross sword, Allen began to cast spells. After a few breaths, a translucent big hand appeared in front of him, manipulating the big hand to the top of the target. The big hand bent hard, and a deep crease appeared on the target that had just withstood the knight's full strength attack. Magic damage, power 4th degree of damage, very low. Allen was not surprised to see this. The wizard's hand was not an attack spell, but an auxiliary type. Allen was very satisfied with such a strong power. After dispersing the wizard's hand, Allen released the flame bead this time. A fiery red ball, 10 centimeters in size, was suspended in front of Allen. The flames made the nearby air a little fuzzy. Allen waved his hand, and the fireball flew out instantly, and the fire flashed, and hit the target heavily. The aura dissipated, and the target had been blown into pieces, and there was a charred black on the ground. Magic damage, power 8, damage degree, destroyed. Arriving in front of another target, Allen cast the grease spell, and a 20 square meter smooth ground appeared on the ground in an instant. The human-shaped target, that was originally standing, fell to the ground with a slight touch. Allen stood on the edge and tried it. It was so smooth that he couldn't stand at all. Then he stepped back a few steps and threw the flame bead into it. It instantly turned into a 20 square meter sea of fire. Several targets in the sea of fire fell in different positions, and several targets had different damages. Magic damage, range damage power 4 to 8 degrees, damage degree, serious. The lowest power reached 4, and the power in the center reached 8 points. The power of the two witchcrafts slightly coordinated is far greater than 1 plus 1. After releasing all the witchcraft, Allen began to calculate. The range spells are available, the control spells are also okay, and the single power is the strongest, which is enough for now. Continue to cast spells and improve proficiency. When the time is almost up, Allen left the practice field with satisfaction. Although these witchcrafts still have various shortcomings, these are minor problems. Just practice more, and they will be fine. Name, Allen Farkus. Strength 5.1, Agility 5.3, Constitution 5.0, Spirit 6.2, Mana 62. In his mind, his data quietly replayed and appeared in front of him. After learning spells, there is one more attribute. Mana changes according to the amount of mental power. 62 points of mana can cast 6 secondary spells. After so much training in the night breathing method, my physical fitness has reached a bottleneck. Now my physical fitness is at the night level. Since the last injection of red dragon blood, it has no effect, and the effect of the meditation method is getting smaller and smaller. At this rate, it will take at least 5 years to become a 3rd level wizard apprentice. Now my qualifications are slightly better than the 4th level qualifications, and those with poor qualifications will need even longer. It will take longer to advance to a formal wizard. If you want to advance quickly, you need to use meditation potions, but meditation potions are not cheap. A bottle of secondary meditation potion requires 1 magic stone, which can be used for 1 meditation. If you want to advance, you still need enough resources. It will take at least 200 to 300 years for the red dragon bloodline to fully mature, and it will take about 15 years for the first transition. to occur without external catalysis. After all, the dragon race has a long lifespan and a slow maturity period, and the same is true for bloodline wizards. However, wizard meditation is a mental interference substance, which can forcibly improve oneself. This can also catalyze the maturity of the bloodline, but the effect is also average. Allen drove away all his thoughts and now prepared to go to the trading area to find a potion store. Chapter 21 Pharmacy. Allen didn't come to the trading area very often, but Albert came here often. He needed to come here often to buy some supplies, because he raised magic beasts, and he also needed to sell magic beasts here. There are many kinds of magic beasts raised in the Five Rings Tower, such as the Jura beast, which has delicious meat, and can improve some physical fitness after cooking. It is a very popular one. There are other magic beasts, but they are expensive. There are also some flying magic beasts that are raised. They are used as means of transportation. They can be rented or purchased directly with some magic stones. They are very valuable, but they are very convenient for traveling. There are also some magic beasts that are kept in captivity and blood or other things are regularly extracted. These are the raw materials for all chemical experiments or potion formulas. In short, they are very useful. Albert often sells things in a potion store called Carl's Hut. The price is not bad. Allen asked and decided to give it a try. The trading area is large and divided into two areas. One has become a shop and the other is a private stall. There are shops opened by the academy and shops opened by various wizard families. There are even more stalls. The academy has tens of thousands of students. They can set up stalls here for a day by spending some gold. When they came to the trading area, there was a team of law enforcement teams stationed at the door. Allen went in directly. Once the transaction was completed here, no regrets were allowed, and it was also not allowed to pass off inferior goods as good ones, cheat and deceive. Otherwise, the law enforcement team would teach people to re-establish the correct values of a harmonious society. Allen came here to check the stalls first. If there is any place with the most accurate prices, it is these stalls. After walking around the stalls and getting the price information, Allen began to go to several shops to ask about the prices. There are 6 potion shops here. The lowest price is 16 parts of medicinal materials for 1 magic stone, and the highest price is 12 parts of medicinal materials for 1 magic stone. The finished product rate is required to be about 60%. That is, 60 parts out of 100 parts must be successful. If it is less than 60 parts, you need to spend money to make up for it. The extra is your extra income. The company that Albert introduced offered 14 portions of magic stone for each magic stone, but because of Jason's relationship, the old man said that he could give 10 more portions of raw materials for the first 2 times, and only 60 portions of finished products were needed for the 110 portions. Allen received 110 portions of raw materials, spent 2 magic stones to rent a set of alchemy tools, and took these things back to the dormitory. He chose 2 types of raw materials, red blood grass and star grass. The 2 are the main ingredients of the treatment potion and the mana potion respectively. He put the alchemy tools on the table. Chip. Simulation test starts. Calculate the success rate. Ding. The experimental data matches, and the main body has a 30% success rate in processing raw materials. Transmit data. Images flashed in front of Allen's eyes, listing every step of processing the potion, and each key point was also marked. After reading it, Allen took a deep breath, took out a red blood grass, put it in the grinding mortar, crushed it, let the juice seep out, then filtered it, collected it in a test tube, heated it, and stirred it with a glass rod in his hand, while inputting mana to activate the medicinal properties. With constant stirring, after the medicinal properties and mana are integrated, the bottle of solution will turn bright red. If the mana input is too fast or too slow, or even the temperature changes, it will cause a chain reaction, resulting in a significant reduction in the efficacy of the medicine. The blue flame licked the bottom of the test tube, and Allen's own mana was constantly input. Finally, the test tube stopped bubbling. He extinguished the flame and picked up the test tube to check the results. The solution was not bright red. This time the treatment failed. Chip. Analyze the cause of failure. Ding. The cause of failure is that the mana input was too fast and the flame temperature was too high. After cleaning the laboratory table, Allen watched the playback of the chip just now, figured out where he went wrong, then cleaned the tools, and took out a new red blood grass. He started again according to the process. Time passed by minute. After a while, Allen extinguished the flame and picked up the test tube to watch. This time was not as good as the first time. After finding the reason in the chip again, Allen did not stop and prepared for the third time. As the chip continued to prompt modifications, Allen's level began to gradually improve. Finally, on the 17th time, he successfully produced the essence of red blood grass. Looking at the bright red liquid in the test tube, Allen was filled with emotion. Knowing is one thing, and doing it is another. However, after succeeding once, Allen's success rate began to rise sharply. With the scanning of his chip, he only failed 4 times. After the production was completed, 35 portions of red blood grass essence were obtained. Because of the chip scanning, the red blood grass essence produced was of perfect grade. There were basically no other impurities in it. Take out 30 portions of these red blood grass essences and put them in a crystal bottle. As for the extra ones, put them in another bottle, ready to sell or keep them for refining potions. Start chip scanning and turn on auxiliary mode. Take out another herb, stargrass. Take it out and put it in a beaker. Add megan leaves, pour in alcohol, and the beaker begins to look at bubbles. Allen took the modulation stick and began to stir. A light blue fluorescence appeared in Allen's eyes, and a large amount of data flowed in his eyes. All kinds of possible changes, material data and other aspects of data are reflected and transmitted to Allen's brain. After a few hours, all the materials were consumed. Stargrass obtained 38 portions of perfect solution. 30 portions were put into a crystal bottle and the rest were put away. Allen stretched his stiff body. In the operation of potion refining, which requires great precision, the auxiliary effect of the chip is unexpectedly good. This is still the simplest raw material preparation, and the success rate is close to 80%. Although the success rate will definitely decrease when refining potions, it is much higher than those of ordinary pharmacists. Thinking of this, Allen was excited. Looking at the sky, the sun was about to set. Allen packed up his things, processed the waste, and walked out of the door. At this time, the dormitory corridor was very quiet. Allen pulled his apprentice robe, closed the door and walked out. Once again came to the trading area, Carl's cabin. Mr. Carl, these are the materials I processed. Allen put 2 crystal bottles on the counter. Oh, you're done? Well, let me see. A middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s and had a bald head picked up the crystal bottle. When he opened it, he muttered something, and a flash of light flashed in his hand. After a while, another flash of light appeared. Carl put down the crystal bottle with a smile on his face. Very perfect, young man. These materials are of very good quality. There are 60 pieces of magic stone here at 14 pieces. I can give you 1 more magic stone. Your materials will be priced at this price in the future. Carl said with a smile. Yes, sir. Also, get me another 200 pieces of materials. Allen nodded in agreement. The transaction was completed quickly. This time Allen earned 5 magic stones. He put the magic stones into his pocket and walked out of the store. Pharmacist is really a lucrative profession. This is not even the finished potion, and the magic stones earned are already considerable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Combat Casting. Days passed one by one. When Allen had enough magic stones, he began to refine several kinds of potions such as secondary healing potions. After failing several times, Allen succeeded as expected. After becoming proficient, Allen's success rate in refining these potions has reached 50%. Most pharmacists have a success rate of only 30%. The role of the chip is not small. After becoming familiar with it, Allen's potion level will definitely continue to improve. As for processing raw materials for the shop, Allen no longer does it. Every day, he spends some time refining various potions. keeping some and selling some. The potion market in the trading area is unexpectedly good. As soon as more than a dozen bottles of 3 potions are put out, they are sold out. Allen only then realized that these low-level potions are in short supply. But think about it, even if 1/3 of the tens of thousands of wizard apprentices go out to hunt monsters in exchange for resources, their consumption is not a small number. Allen applied for a course called combat casting. The fee standard for such a course is the most expensive one. There is no information about wizard battles in the chip. There is too little information, and there are too many uncertain factors in the chip calculation and deduction. The class was held in the training ground. There were 2 tall monster statues at the door. They looked lifelike, but if you thought they were statues, he would teach you a lesson soon. The instructor was a middle-aged man. If he wasn't standing in the training ground, no one would think he was a wizard. He had strong tendon muscles, a shiny bald head, and a tattoo on his collar. It looked like runes were engraved on his skin. His arms were thicker than Allen's thighs. He looked like a big muscleman. How could he be a wizard? He must have walked into the wrong set. But seeing the respectful faces of the apprentices around him, Allen didn't want to show up. To be honest, this person standing here looked like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. The instructor's name was Connor. He was a combat wizard who was good at energy spells, auxiliary spells and infiltration. He was said to be the leader of the combat wizard special forces. He was best at infiltration. It was said that since his debut, he had never left anyone alive every time he infiltrated. No, he had never been discovered. The sparring partners for combat spellcasting training are all knights. For ordinary people, knights may be very strong and can get a title, but for the Wizard Academy, knights are mass-produced products. Not only are there dozens of knight breathing methods in the library, but even some magic potions made by wizards can make an ordinary person a knight. The wooden sword used for attack. This wooden sword is made of iron wood, and its hardness is close to steel. Allen must fully release spells under the attack of these knights. At the beginning, it was naturally a variety of beatings. These wizards usually stay high on the mountain, but this time it was completely the opposite. They were severely taught a lesson by a group of knights. Allen was also in a mess. Although the chip reacted quickly and gave prompts early, Allen needed to split his attention. When casting spells, if he relaxed a little, he would be caught and hit. If he used martial arts, he would forget how to cast spells. The scene was extremely embarrassing. Allen spent an afternoon being abused again. However, after an afternoon of practice, Allen was finally able to cast a spell, the grease spell, with the help of the chip. Back to the dormitory, I took a beautiful hot bath and felt refreshed. After putting on his apprentice robe, Allen prepared to have dinner. There were many things to complain about in this wizard academy. For example, apprentices could only wear apprentice robes, and only formal wizards could wear them at will. The wizard robes looked like a grey sheet draped over the body. However, although the wizard robes were ugly, they had 2 magic patterns attached to them. According to the game, this was an equipment with enchantment +2. In fact, it was toughness. The fabric was stronger and could withstand the cutting of a dagger. Cleanliness, no need to spend time washing clothes, a must-have for lazy people. Compared with the previous life, the education level was not as relaxed as in the university. It didn't matter if you didn't go to class, no one would care. You could practice or not, but if you didn't become a wizard apprentice, the slight radiation everywhere in the academy would kill you within 5 years. Although the academy had many shortcomings, the food here was really good, and this was the only thing that satisfied Allen. The chef of the restaurant here is a halfling. Halfling chefs may be one of the best chefs in the world. These small people have flexible fingers, develop taste buds, and are full of imagination. They can make ordinary materials into delicious food. It is said that the best halfling chefs in the academy are all in Area A, which is the restaurant of the academy's senior management. Even formal wizards will feel pain in their hearts if they go there once. For Allen, this is the food in the world. It is one of the few places that can be compared with the previous life. There are many secondary spells, but there are only a few practical ones, such as arrows, stuns, and flashes. Flashes can be divided into 2 types. One is light spells, which can provide long-term lighting in the dark, and the other is the effect of flash bombs, which emits a light of amazing brightness and instantly blinds people. Secondary force field deviation. This spell is a defensive spell that can distort the force field around the body and deflect the attack on him, but the deflection strength has an upper limit. Once the upper limit is exceeded, it will no longer work. Being as light as a swallow, he can increase his movement speed and dodge. After all, if he can't win, he has to run. Although he has learned a lot of secondary spells, his mana and mental strength can't support Allen's consumption, so he needs to use them selectively during the battle. In a short period of time, Allen spent more magic stones than he did in the previous 2 years. But it's all worth it. Fortunately, low-level magic potions are in short supply in the market, otherwise Allen would have been so poor that he would have to sell himself. As for those potions that enhance the effect of meditation, Allen scanned them with a chip and found that they contain high radioactivity. If ordinary people dare to take this kind of potion, they are likely to be killed by radiation. The wizard system in this world uses radiation energy to induce physical mutations and speed up cultivation. After Allen used the chip to deduce that taking this potion would not cause much harm to his own physique, he took a bottle carefully at this time. The effect of meditation was unexpectedly good. This time, Allen felt that his mental power was like the tides that fluctuated with meditation. Every fluctuation would increase slightly. When the light of dawn faded, Allen opened his eyes and let the chip scan his body as soon as possible. Sure enough, his mental power increased by 0.1. This was comparable to the efforts of the past month. Ding. The host's body radiation increased. Please pay attention to clear it. Allen took a look and found that, after taking the meditation potion, his own radiation index increased by more than 10 times. If he continued to take it, the radiation would continue to increase. When the radiation exceeded his own tolerance limit, it would cause uncontrollable mutations in his body. Therefore, taking the potion must be controlled. Chapter 23 Trading. The wizard world has also studied the removal of radiation, but this kind of radiation will not cause serious consequences as long as it is not excessive. It is a disaster for ordinary people. It takes a while for the radiation source to decay naturally without it. The wizards here will use radiation to speed up meditation, but this method is very dangerous. Allen often sees in the books in the library that wizards have successfully advanced, but their bodies have mutated, and their bodies have collapsed. Therefore, it is important to reduce the radiation to a safe value. The most common method is to strengthen the body and stop taking potions. After a period of time, the radiation value will decrease. During this period, there are more and more blind dates organized by wizard families. Allen has encountered them several times. Although Allen did not show particularly outstanding talents in the academy, he had attracted a lot of attention by teaching other apprentices basic courses. This kind of apprentice with outstanding memory and hard work will have a good future in the academy. As for qualifications, the 3rd level qualification is already good. As for apprentices with better qualifications, how could the academy give them to these wizard families? This is not the first time Allen has received invitations from others. Before there was no magic stone, Allen was indeed a little tempted. Since he could make money with potions, he has completely dispelled this idea. However, there are also many talents in these families, which ensures the continuation of these families. On the training ground, Allen successfully cast a spell again, and a dizziness spell made the knight next to him dizzy and fall to the ground. Allen, you can now cast spells in close combat with knights. You should have passed this combat casting class. Connor, the instructor of combat casting, said with a look of relief. It's the instructor's guidance. Allen panted and said with a smile. Don't be modest. If you don't pass, I won't let you pass. Connor said with emotion. You are the one who has made the fastest progress in the past 10 years. In just 2 months, you have gone from a busy rookie to an old bird who can calmly deal with 3 knights. Allen, with your talent, you should join the combat wizards instead of joining the academy. Connor said with regret. Instructor, I'm fine this way. Allen smiled and showed a row of teeth. Okay, whatever you want. If you have any questions in the future, you can come here to ask me. Teacher, I will come here often. Although you have passed the battle casting, you lack practical experience and are still a rookie. It will be good for you to join the patrol team to train. Connor thought for a while and said, "This is my secret mark. Take it to find Clyde, and he will take care of you." "Thank you, teacher, I will go." Allen took the badge with a look of surprise and put it away carefully. "Okay, hurry up and don't be an eyesore here." Connor looked impatient and waved his hand and didn't look at him. "Teacher, goodbye." Allen performed a wizard salute and left respectfully. Take out the badge to check. This is a secondary magic item. There is a sword symbol on the metal, and there is a book next to it. There is a circle of bloodthorns wrapped around the outside. The badge has no other function. It is an identity certificate. Allen suffered a lot during this period of training. As a sparring knight, he has received special training and is very familiar with the wizard spellcasting methods. When only one person is close, Allen can barely win, and the 3 people are beaten. After 2 months of training, Allen was finally able to cast spells smoothly in the fight. He passed the assessment successfully, while other apprentices in the same batch are still being educated by the knights. As for actual combat, Allen planned to follow Connor's instructions and go to the patrol team for training. There are many polluted beasts and demonized beasts outside the Five Rings Tower. The powerful ones have been eliminated or driven away by the formal wizards, and the rest are left for the apprentices to practice. These demonized beasts and polluted beasts reproduce very quickly, and they need to be cleaned up every once in a while. These demonized beasts are also a resource, and many wizards will use them in their transformation experiments. This place is like a breeding farm. A day passed quickly. After class, Allen began to collect information with a chip. There are fixed strongholds for patrols near the Five Rings Tower. The patrol route is not fixed each time, but these strongholds must be checked. The academy is surrounded by a swamp, and the Candle Mountains are farther away. That is the territory of higher level monsters. It is said that formal wizard level monsters often appear in the inner circle of the mountains. It is rare to encounter them in the periphery. There are many demonized plants and other rare minerals in it. Many apprentices in the academy will form teams to collect them. However, many apprentices die there every year. In the trading area, Allen looked at the stalls with great interest. There were stalls around, and grey-robed apprentices were standing or sitting on the stalls. There were countless strange things, including some common materials and some strange things. Allen observed casually and prepared to buy a weapon. Most of the stalls here were first and second level apprentices, and senior apprentices were rare. Many of the stalls were defective or raw materials. There might be good things among them, but the chance of fakes was higher. It is a test of one's luck to come here to pick up bargains. Suddenly, Allen showed a hint of surprise on his face and saw an item on a stall. It was a first level apprentice. On the stall of this apprentice, some reddish brown metal was placed, which looked dirty, as if it had just been dug out of the ground. "Hello, is there anything you need?" Seeing Allen stop in front of the stall, the grey-robed apprentice said with a cheer. "Hello." Allen nodded. "What kind of ore is this, and what is it used for?" "These are red flame irons, which can barely be considered a low-level magic material with fire attributes." The apprentice in front of him explained. "This red flame iron generally appears in areas with rich fire element, and it appears more often in magma areas of volcanic craters. It is a mutated iron ore. Because of long-term contact with fire element, some changes have occurred, and it can be used to make magic items. When made into weapons for the knights, there will be a little elemental damage. The effect depends on the craftsmanship. However, this ore is more resistant to high temperatures, and the mana transmission is much stronger than that of ordinary metals. Do you need to make a weapon? These pieces should be enough," the man said with a smile. Allen squatted down to check. "Chip. Scan these ores." Ding, the task has been established, and the scan is complete. After comparison, the target is 85% similar to red crystal iron, 50% similar to red flame iron, and 20% similar to lava iron. After getting the confirmation of the chip, Allen knew what was going on. He said calmly, "It's just right to make a knight sword for my followers. The attached elemental damage can also cause damage to ghosts. How many magic stones?" "5 magic stones will do," the stall owner said with a smile. "It's a bit expensive." If it has been made into a weapon, 5 magic stones will do. After buying it, you have to find a workshop to process it. I will take 3 magic stones, otherwise you can keep it for yourself. Allen put down the ore, stood up and gently patted the dust on his hands. Chapter 24 Smelting. 3 pieces won't do. It's too little. I took a big risk to bring this from the Candle Mountains. I need at least 5 magic stones. Haha, Candle Mountains. Seeing the anxious expression of the stall owner, Allen continued, okay, even if it's the Candle Mountains, 4 magic stones, forget it if you don't sell it. Allen turned around and prepared to leave. Okay, 4 pieces is 4 pieces. Seeing that Allen was not buying it, he nodded and agreed. These pieces of ore were picked up outside the Candle Mountains. No one was interested in them for a month. Now someone wants to buy them, just sell them. 4 magic stones can buy a secondary meditation potion. After packing up a few pieces of ore, Allen handed the magic stones to the stall owner, said hello and quickly left the stall area. Red flame iron can barely be considered a magic material, but if you want to use it to refine magic items, the power is pitifully weak, but it is a good material for making weapons for knights. As for the red crystal iron, it is an advanced material of the red flame iron. It is very similar to the red flame iron, and can be used to make magic items. The ore will show crystallization. These pieces of ore are actually the joints of the red flame iron and the red crystal iron. These pieces of red flame iron should be able to extract fist-sized red crystal iron. Without stopping along the way, I went directly to the shop area. There are blacksmith shops and alchemy shops here. It is very simple to deal with these magic items. The buildings here are tall houses made of stones. Walking along the way, I saw a sign with a hammer painted on it. Seeing this large blacksmith shop, I pushed open the door and heard a deafening sound of metal colliding. The red flame was blown by the bellows, and the flames jumped up and down. From Allen's perspective, this can be regarded as a metal processing plant. Although the efficiency is low and the technology is backward, it is already good in this medieval background. Hey, hello apprentice, what do you want to buy? The surrounding noise made Allen unable to hear the voice. Turning around, he saw a dwarf about 1.4 meters tall, with thick arms almost as thick as an ordinary person's waist, hitting a piece of iron in his hand with an exaggerated short-handled heavy hammer. Seeing Allen turned around, he repeated it again. I want to customize a weapon, Allen said loudly. The dwarf wore black goggles, and there were many traces of burns from sparks on his face. There was a tuft of carefully groomed beard on his chest. Hearing Allen's purpose, he put down the hammer and pushed up the obsidian goggles. Apprentice, are you going to customize weapons for your followers? Is there any difference? Ailu was a little confused. Everyone's height and arm length are different. If you want to customize a suitable weapon, it's best to come in person. The dwarf blacksmith explained seriously. I see, just customize it according to my body shape. Allen nodded and said, okay, as you wish. What material do you want to use? Fine iron, black forged steel, American English is alloy, or magic mineral? Or do you have better materials? The dwarf poured a glass of rum and handed it to Allen. Wizards don't drink, it will affect their thinking. Allen refused after looking at the dark brown rum. What a strange profession. What fun is there in life without wine? He muttered and drank most of the wine in one gulp, and the wine stains dripped down his beard to his chest. This ore, separated from the red iron, should be able to make a cross sword. Allen took out several pieces of reddish brown ore. The dwarf reached out and took a piece and looked at it for a few times and said, the mixed ore of red iron and red crystal iron is not bad. These can be made into a weapon. A magic stone. Come and pick it up in 3 days. First separate the red crystal iron. I need to take it away, Allen said, taking out a magic stone and handing it to the dwarf. This is easy. It will be ready in a while. My name is Grow. What's your name? The dwarf nodded and said, Allen. Will the flame bead be released? Yes. What's the problem? To quickly separate these two substances, high temperature is required. If you are not in a hurry, then wait for me to slowly calcine. If you are in a hurry, you need to rely on the power of magic. Grow picked up the ore and talked to himself. How can I help you? Allen did not refuse. When you calcine in a while, cast the flame bead, but don't release it. Cover the ore. By the way, how is your magic control? Grow began to open a furnace, and the orange-red flame suddenly increased. I'm sure you will be satisfied. Okay, don't blame me if you can't control it well, and the ore is not completely separated. He took out a quartz crucible, put the ore in it, and then added a combustion aid to it, and put it on the furnace. He pulled down the obsidian goggles casually. Allen, get ready and listen to my command. Grow pulled the bellows with one hand, and the flame suddenly increased. The combustion aid directly released a piece of fire. The original reddish-brown surface of the ore began to turn orange-red, and then turned bright red. Now, Allen looked stern. Hearing the order, he moved the fireball in his hand above the crucible, and then slowly covered the ore. Then the flame instantly turned yellow-white. The light was dazzling, and the ore melted visibly with the naked eye. What was melting now was the red iron. When Grow saw that it had melted, he shouted, "Stop!" Allen put away his magic power, and the flame bead slowly dissipated. Then he picked up the tongs, picked up the crucible, and poured the melted red iron into a mold with a slight movement of his wrist. Then he took out the red crystal iron, and put it aside. After several operations, several pieces of ore had been completely melted, leaving only a few pieces of red crystal iron. The red crystal iron was collected and heated in the crucible again. This time, Allen manipulated the flame beads to heat for twice as long as the previous times, and then all the red crystal iron was fused together, leaving only some burning red slag. After throwing it aside, Grow measured Allen's height ratio. When he thought of this dwarf standing on the table to measure Allen's height, he couldn't help wanting to laugh out loud. Seeing Grow's face as black as the bottom of a pot, Allen wisely looked around and pretended to know nothing until he was far away from the blacksmith shop and laughed out loud. Holding the still warm red crystal iron in his hand, he looked it up and down. The red crystal iron had already crystallized and showed a liquid luster. It was the size of a baby's fist and combined with some other materials to make a secondary magic item. It was more than enough. After leaving the blacksmith shop, Allen went directly to the alchemy shop. This shop was opened by the academy and provided secondary and low-level magic items for sale or customization. The quality was fine, but the price was not affordable at all. Allen only passed by it a few times. Because he was short of money, he did not go in to observe. This time, he planned to use this piece of red crystal iron with some other materials to refine a magic item. Chapter 25, Flame Ring. The flame ring is a secondary magic item. It is mainly made of red crystal iron, with small pieces of ruby and several other materials. Its function is to store 3 secondary magic flame beads. It needs to be actively charged. After charging, it can be released directly. It is simple, convenient and fast. Although it is a secondary magic item, it is also very helpful for improving strength. So far, Allen has not seen low-level magic items, but he has seen secondary magic items several times. The best one is a spider web ring, which can store energy 3 times. This is a range control skill, much stronger than the flame beads. Another one is the thorn shield medallion, which is the most precious among the magic items. It can instantly support a protective spell, which is often used to save lives. However, Allen does not have the materials for that kind of magic item, and he has no idea where to start if he wants to make it. When he came to the alchemy workshop, there was an alchemy laboratory for Ent, and some alchemy auxiliary materials were also sold. When he entered the door, he saw an apprentice sorting the shelves. "What do you need, sir?" "I need some alchemy auxiliary materials and I need to rent an alchemy laboratory." Allen looked around. "We can be said to be the place with the most complete alchemical materials in the 5 Rings Tower. What materials do you need?" The apprentice said proudly. 50 grams of magic silver, 30 grams of lava ash, and 50 grams of fire copper. Allen said the materials he needed. "Okay, sir, we have all the materials this time. A total of 30 magic stones. The alchemical laboratory rents 1 magic stone for 1 hour. I will prepare the materials for you first. Please wait a moment." The apprentice calculated the price and began to prepare the materials. Allen nodded in agreement and opened the store to observe. There was a huge claw on the shelf. It looked dried, but the hideous joints still declared the power of this creature when it was alive. "Chip, Match item information. Ding. The task has been established. Information matching in progress. Matching completed. The item is 78% similar to the demonized beast bronze behemoth and 51% similar to the tyrannical fire ape. It seems that this is the king of the beasts. Behemoth will reach the level of a formal wizard when it grows up, but it does not know magic and is far from being a wizard's opponent. A crystal bottle next to it is filled with a slightly blue liquid. In the liquid is a huge eyeball, and there are several twisted eye stalks behind the eyeball, which makes people's scalps numb. This is the main eye of the underground eye demon, a precious magic material that can not only refine mind magic items, but also release psychic rays. Sir, please check the things you want. The wizard apprentice put the materials on the table and made an invitation gesture to Allen. Okay. Without being polite, Allen picked up the materials and started testing, and started the chip scan at the same time. After checking all the items, Allen put down the items and slowly exhaled. The materials are good. I'm very satisfied. Here are the magic stones. Please count them. As he said, he took out the dimensional bag distributed by the academy, and took out 30 magic stones, and put them on the table. After counting the number and nodding, Allen collected the materials on the table one by one. Please follow me to rent a laboratory. After collecting the magic stone, the apprentice walked to a door on the side, and Allen nodded and followed. The corridor was very short, less than 10 meters, and came to the door of a room built with huge stones. The apprentice took out a book on the table in front of the room, and looked at it for a while. There are still several alchemy laboratories in Area C that are vacant. As for the higher level ones, they are not open to apprentices. Sorry, you can only choose these few. He spread out a floor plan and pointed to several rooms. As long as the room is fine, low level alchemy laboratories are acceptable. Allen did not ask for a higher level one. Not to mention that those are only used by formal wizards. Even the price marked on them made him feel painful. That's easy. Please follow me. Seeing that Allen had no objection, he took out a crystal ball and led the way in front. After walking for a few minutes, he came to a door made of obsidian. The apprentice released a ray of light with the crystal ball, and the door opened directly. The space inside is not big, about 30 square meters. In the middle is an alchemy laboratory table with various instruments on it. Next to it is a shelf and a sink. There is no peculiar smell. Allen went in to check the experimental instruments. Although these tools are worn, they do not affect their use. The accuracy is still up to the requirements. Seeing Allen check it once, the apprentice seemed very patient and did not urge him. After Allen checked and nodded in agreement, he said, "Is this room okay?" "Yes." Allen nodded. 1 magic stone per hour. How long do you need to use it? 3 hours. If it exceeds the time, I will make up for it at the end of the use. Allen thought for a while and said, "Okay. 3 magic stones. You are not allowed to damage the experimental tools. If you damage them, you need to pay the price. If you accept it, you can use it." "Okay, I will pay attention. Here are 3 magic stones." Allen nodded in agreement and handed the magic stone to the apprentice. "This is the control center of this laboratory. You can control this laboratory through it. I wish you a pleasant use." The apprentice took the magic stone, smiled and left directly. Controlling the crystal ball, he closed the door of the laboratory. The heavy obsidian not only protected the laboratory from outside disturbances, but also isolated the magic pollution. Even if there was an accident in the experiment, the outside world would not be affected. After preparing all the materials, Allen took a deep breath. "Chip, call up the design drawings of the flame ring." Allen got a lot of design drawings of magic items in the library. Not only did he memorize them all, but he also optimized and improved the chip. The original mana pattern design was very rough and did not consider aesthetics, so the flame ring looked ugly and the efficiency of energy conversion was also high. After the improvement, it was much better, and the loss was reduced to 1/5 of the original, and the performance was greatly improved. Light the magic crystal lamp on the experimental table, and then put the fire copper and red crystal iron in. The temperature of the magic crystal lamp is very high, but the price is also high. It needs magic stone as raw material, which is generally used in laboratories. Stir with a special stirring rod, and with the help of the chip, let these solutions mix thoroughly. This will serve as the main body of the flame ring. In front of Allen's eyes was a light blue screen, which displayed various data. Finally, when the screen showed green, Allen used the magician's hand to summon a small translucent palm, and began to take out the liquid and put it into the prepared ring model. After the main body was cast, it was placed in the prepared magic solution and soaked, and then began to process other materials. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.